Did she say what kind of animal it was that attacked her?
So yeah, they're saying it's some type of animal attack. Statistically, there's been more animal attacks, mysterious deaths, people gone missing.
In other news, local authorities remain perplexed by the animal attacks.
What attacked you in the woods?
An animal. What else could it have been?
Welcome to It Was an Animal Attack, home of the supernatural drama series. I'm Fadzai.
And I'm Sandile.
And today we will be continuing with Katherine Pierce, aka Katerina Petrova, as we will soon see.
Yeah.
This is our second part of her lovely journey, and we're gonna pick up where we left off unless there's any corrections that you can think of.
Not at my end. I mean, if we'll permit it, there's a correction I want to make about the Damon episode from ages ago.
Go ahead.
Because there is a part in season 1. It's the episode where he sells out Lexi to the Founders Council and then kills her. In that moment, he had staged a victim. It was a man and a woman outside the Mystic Grill. And I referred to that man in the episode as a pseudo-rapist because that was my memory of the situation. As to,
You did?
Well, yeah, I did. Because I was like still trying to find like some good for Damon to be like, let's scrape for the gold in the muck.
Damn.
No, that was just a guy and his girlfriend who were outside the grill.
Allegations that have to be made to make Damon look better.
Especially as me, who was like, I mean, go back to the Damon episode to hear my opinions on Damon. Sorry to that man who is dead, but also in his memory, I will find a way to atone. That was just a guy and his girl. So there is no... Because I think I had said, well, at least it was just some like pseudo-rapist guy that he kills to like frame Lexi in the situation. No, just some dude. And why would he need any justification, right?
Yeah. Like many things involving Damon, I try not to think of Lexi while watching that show because it just feels so heinous.
But yeah.
We'll pick up where we left off. Episode 8 of Season 2, Rose.
Yes.
Now, I probably said this before, but this was the very first episode of the Vampire Diaries that I watched.
Yeah.
I came in blind, right in the middle of drama. Katherine has been sealed away in the tomb. They stupidly left the Moonstone with her for good measure. I don't know why. And at the end of the previous episode, Elena got herself snatched by an unknown man.
Sure did.
In this episode, the man is revealed to just be some compelled human minion working for a vampire named Trevor. After eating the man, Trevor takes Elena to this abandoned... I mean, he does.
He does. It's true.
He takes Elena to an abandoned, dilapidated-looking house in the middle of nowhere, and there Elena meets Trevor's friend, the eponymous Rose, who is also a vampire. Obligatory Katherine reference. Rose is like, my God, you look just like her.
Of course.
When she sees Elena for the first time. Elena, probably knowing the reputation that Katherine has for like everyone she's ever met, is immediately like, I'm not Katherine. And Rose is like, no, I know who you are. Elena's like panicking and she's like, oh, please, like, what do you want? What are you doing? And Rose tells her to stay quiet repeatedly, and Elena just won't listen. So she backhands her across the face with vampire strength. I think we discussed it in the Elena episode.
Yeah. All this is, listen, we go beat for beat with Elena in this one.
But anyway, Stefan realizes that Elena's missing because Jeremy is like, oh, she didn't come home last night. I thought she was with you. Stefan meets up with Damon and theorizes that Katherine is somehow behind Elena's absence. Damon's like, no, Katherine is in the tomb under Fell's church because I personally shut her in there. And then Stefan is like, did you? I know the hold Katherine has on you. And I was like, oof. Stefan, low blow. I know your mind is reeling because your girl is missing, but if you honestly think Damon would pass up his chance for revenge on this woman who has made it abundantly clear that she doesn't care about him and that he has made it abundantly clear that he now hates, Damon almost staked Katherine at the masquerade after he already knew she was linked to Elena's body.
That's true. She's a persuasive woman. Listen, we've seen all the men who have spun in circles for her. Who's to say someone she already had her hooks in?
It's true. But yeah, he assures Stefan that Katherine is in the tomb. But he now chooses to tell Stefan, and this is the first time he takes this seriously. He's like, oh yeah, but Katherine's last words before I shut her in were to warn me that Elena was in danger from someone.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe that's got something to do with it. And Stefan is like, really, dude?
Maybe
you didn't try to
something...
get more info out of her when she told you that?
Maybe something you could have shared with the group, Damon. I don't know.
Damon points out, fairly, that Katherine is infamously dishonest, and he had no real reason to assume she was suddenly telling the truth for a change. So Stefan is like, okay, fine, let's go interrogate Katherine. And Damon's like, nope, because Katherine will bargain her freedom for her info, and Stefan, who is desperate to save Elena, will agree to that deal. And once Katherine is out, she'll kill them all. And I'm like, you know what, Damon? I'm at least glad that you're now properly afraid of her.
It's certainly the first time.
That's growth.
Right? That's growth for real.
Also, Katherine has also made it clear she hates Elena, so it could be out of the frying pan and into the fire if they get her involved. However, Stefan doesn't care. He's willing to risk anything for Elena. So back at the random, run-down old manor, Elena regains consciousness and hears Rose and Trevor in another room. They are discussing someone named Elijah, who Rose has reached out to. Trevor seems terrified at the prospect of Elijah showing up. Rose, however, states that she's tired of the two of them always being on the run. Trevor says that running has kept them from being killed, but Rose believes that if they can make a deal with Elijah, they will finally be free. At the high school, Stefan speaks to Bonnie. Bonnie says that she can't release Katherine from the tomb because she lacks the power to undo that spell. But Stefan is like, I can still open the door and talk to Katherine, right? Bonnie says, yeah, but Damon's right. Katherine's not going to tell us anything without, ensuring that we give her something in return. So instead, Bonnie offers to try a locator spell to find Elena. After she gives them the location, the Salvatore brothers drive to Elena's rescue. Elena, meanwhile, has managed to get Rose talking, and Rose tells Elena that she and her friend Trevor have been on the run for 500 years. But now, Rose is going to hand Elena over to a man named Elijah, whom she calls an original, in order to gain her freedom. Their freedom. That was her intention. Rose explains to Elena that she is something known as a Petrova doppelganger, and that Elena is the key to breaking the sun and moon curse, which legend says was cast upon werewolves and vampires. To do this, Elena must be sacrificed, i.e. die. Later on, Trevor elaborates a bit on whom the originals are. He describes them as the quote-unquote first family from the old world. And he tells Elena that he and Rose have been on the run from them for half a millennium because he did something to anger them. Elena asks what he did, and Rose says he made the mistake countless others did. He trusted Katerina Petrova. And it's like, calling her by her birth name.
Yeah, we love to see it. I mean, he says 500 years old. He hasn't heard this Katherine Pierce nonsense.
Yeah.
He knows her true name. There's power in a true name, they say.
And this is the pattern we'll see this season with people who are old enough to have been dealing with Katherine for centuries. They all call her by her birth name. Rose describes Katerina, aka Katherine, as the first Petrova doppelganger. This is and isn't accurate. Walk with
she
me.
is the first Petrova doppelganger, certainly.
Yes, Katherine is the first known doppelganger to have the surname Petrova. But no, she isn't the first woman to be a magical lookalike with that face.
Within that family line, yeah.
We will later learn of Tatia.
Yeah, it's funny because, maybe they didn't know about her, but I mean, as we come to learn, at least Trevor's connection to all this nonsense, they should be aware. Well, maybe not should. Maybe the originals
maybe
didn't
not
divulge.
them. I guess the Michelsons would know, and they're probably the one who gave Katherine that title. But I'm
exactly.
The Michelsons knew Tatia when they were still human.
Right.
And we later learned that she herself was a doppelganger of
right.
Amara.
And that's a surprise to everybody, so I'm not holding that against them. That's 1,000 years.
I guess technically Katherine is the first Petrova doppelganger, but she's technically number 2.
Yeah. True that. That we know of.
But anyway.
That we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. Because at first I thought, the doppelganger shows up every 500 years. But later on in the Silas season, it seems like they could be showing up rather frequently.
Yeah, they say every generation. So it's like they've got to be in-betweeners who just weren't important to history, you know?
I guess. So Trevor says that he helped Katherine escape her fate as the original sacrifice, and this is what incurred the wrath of the originals. Rose tells Elena, and a little bit Trevor, because she's looking at him when she speaks, that they are not going to make the same mistake again. And from all this, we can infer that Katherine was going to be sacrificed to break the sun and moon curse, but that didn't end up happening. And that must be what sent her on the run all those years ago. And now that we know Rose and Trevor have been running for 500 years, and Katherine's former BFF was 500 years old, we know for a fact, Katherine is over 500. This is our confirmation.
She old as hell.
I think even in this episode, Stefan and Damon are like, whoever snatched Elena, if it's who Katherine was running from, that puts them at 500 years old and strong. So it's going to be a challenge to fight them. Pity, because it also shows that it means if Katherine is 500, she spent her entire vampire life being pursued by whoever is after Trevor and Rose.
Exactly. That is the most pivotal discovery when it comes to Katherine and her characterization, the fact that she has been on the run her entire life. But I mean, we're coming up to that whole discussion.
Oof. Yeah. So as Elijah draws closer, Trevor is scared shitless and wants to flee. Rose convinces him to stay put and that handing over Elena will guarantee them a pardon from Elijah. Elijah arrives and Rose speaks to him alone while Trevor waits with Elena in the other room. Rose tells Elijah that Katherine did not burn in Fell's church in 1864 as most people had originally believed, and that she survived the vampire roundup. Elijah asks where Katherine is now, and Rose is like, you don't seem surprised to hear that Katherine is alive. And Elijah's like, girl, you summoned me to this dodgy, middle of nowhere, broken down house that happens to be pretty close to Mystic Falls. So I assumed it had everything to do with Katerina, as he calls her.
His is my favorite pronunciation of Katerina.
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciate that Elijah pronounces her birth name with more of like a non-English accent than Rose and Trevor. It's like Katerina. Yep. I mean, listen, we'll later learn that English isn't his first language either. So, you know.
He knows how it is.
So Elijah asks Rose if Katherine is in her possession. And Rose smiles and tells him, no, but I have better. I have her doppelganger. Elijah's like, that's impossible. Her family line ended with her. I know that for a fact. Rose says, then the facts are wrong. Elijah asks to be shown this new doppelganger. And after getting Elijah to swear to issue a pardon, Rose takes him to see Elena. You should have read the fine print, Rose, because the unfortunate thing about modern English is that there is no standard difference in plural you and singular you. So when Elijah says, I guarantee you will be pardoned to Rose, he's saying you singular, and Rose assumes he means you plural. Elijah executes Trevor for his betrayal, but sticks to his agreement to spare Rose. He then goes to take Elena and, deuce out of there. Elena, who knows that the Salvatores are on their way to save her thanks to a magic message that has been sent from Bonnie, tries to stall Elijah. She quickly mentions that she knows about the Moonstone and offers to help him get it. Elijah simply removes her vervain necklace.
Pesky vervain.
And compels her to tell him where it is. So Elena is forced to inform him that the Moonstone is in the tomb under Fell's church with Katherine. Eventually, Stefan and Damon arrive to rescue Elena, and with her help, they manage to outmaneuver Elijah and stake him. He withers and dies, pinned to the wall by a stake, and Rose flees. And at the end of the episode, shows up at Chez Salvatore, and she warns Stefan that even if Elijah is dead, the other originals will come for Elena because of someone named Klaus. In the final scene, alone in that broken down manor, Elijah revives, yanking the stake out of his heart. So he's not so dead after all. Episode 9, Katerina.
Katerina.
Yes. Finally getting into it. We open on a flashback to Bulgaria, 1490. A teenage girl is giving birth in her parents' home, and that girl grew up to be Katherine Pierce.
Damn. Got the separation right out the gate.
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. She was still Katerina Petrova at this point. Her mother, Mama Petrova, sends Katerina's sister, who never gets a name, bless her heart, or any lines, but if she is credited as her sister, she sends her to fetch some towels or water or something.
The things you need in childbirth.
Water and towels. Hot water and towels. Women in the room, men far away.
The shame, the horror of childbirth.
Mama Petrova is there to support and encourage Katerina as the young girl goes through the grueling pains of a 15th century home birth.
Poof.
The entire scene is acted in Bulgarian, which Nina Dobrev is fluent in. So I assume they found other local Bulgarian speakers to play her family?
At home?
Or else Nina just taught them their lines phonetically?
Maybe, yeah. I wonder what is the Bulgarian population in Canada where I assume they shoot this show.
Yeah.
Or do they shoot in Virginia?
They definitely don't shoot in Virginia.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
I mean, not to diss the featured extras who got to play Katherine's parents, their performance seems a bit more wooden than Nina Dobrev's.
Oof.
So maybe they aren't Bulgarian speakers and she just taught them how to say the words.
Not you denigrating your peers. My goodness.
I mean, as compared to Nina Dobrev's seasoned actor, lead of the show, playing a dual role.
Listen, all I'll say is if I had to act in Zulu, I'd probably seem a little bit wooden too. And that's my mother tongue. Some of us live different lives,
That's fair. I mean, I can only speak English. And I'm not out here getting starring roles in that language either. So. Anyway, eventually, after one final big push, her baby is born. Mama Petrova tells her that it is a little girl. Katerina asks her mother if she can hold her newborn, and she looks exhausted, she's sweating, she's breathless, but the look on her face when she sees her child is one of absolute wonder. It's a look we've never seen on Catherine's face. It's not the inquisitive fascination with which she was examining Elena. It's not like the hungry, predatory possessiveness with which she views Stefan, or even like the dark, playful, flirtatious looks that she gives Damon when she bothers to look at him at all. Her eyes are like full of this genuine, tender affection, this delicate look, like she's seen something precious and fragile that requires care. And it's like, who is this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is before everything, right? She's what, 17 at this point?
I think she might even be younger because canonically she's 17 when she turns in 1492.
And it took time to get from Bulgaria to England. Oh,
Yeah.
she might be like 15.
Yeah, she might be 15 because this is 2 years before.
That's rough.
Unfortunately, the moment is cut short as before Mama Petrova can hand Katerina her baby, Papa Petrov bursts in. He's credited as Papa Petrova. That is incorrect. He would be Petrov. That is how the naming works in Slavic languages.
I thought you were taking issue with the Papa, and I'm like, I think we can forgive not getting exact Bulgarian honorific. I don't know.
I'm just like, when your lead is a Bulgarian speaker, I expect you to ask her these questions so that she can help you.
That's fair.
Papa Petrov bursts in and says, in Bulgarian, "Woman, don't, what are you doing?" And he demands that Mama Petrova give him the child. And sadly, like a dutiful 15th century wife, Mama Petrova has no choice but to obey her husband. And Katerina calls out to her father, pleading to be allowed to hold her baby just once, at least once. But Papa Petrov tells her to forget it. He says that she's disgraced their family, and he walks out of the room carrying the wailing infant with him. Katerina starts to cry, and she begs him not to take her baby away. And Mama Petrova tries to comfort her daughter, telling her that it's what's best for the child. So Katerina is left quietly sobbing as her mother hugs her and tearfully tells her to let the child go.
Yeah.
It's very sad. Very, very sad. Humanizing moment for Catherine.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is the start of what TV tropes would call her trauma conga line.
All right.
Which is... I don't name the tropes.
TV tropes.
I just quote them.
I need them to take like a 3-month break and reflect a little bit. It's ridiculous over there.
It really is. But yeah, she goes through a lot, as we will see in this episode. Back in the present, Elena goes to Chez Salvatore. There, Stefan, Damon, and Rose, who's now joined the Mystic Falls gang, tells her what little they know about Klaus. It's a vague bundle of info that will largely become very incorrect as the show progresses and solidifies its mythology.
Right.
But the gist is that Rose is certain that Klaus will come for Elena, and they should all be shaking in their boots. And then Elena's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go to school, bye.
I love it.
Later on, we see that Elena has actually roped Caroline into sneaking her off to the tomb under Fell's church.
Queen.
Elena really just needs Caroline to use her vampire strength to push open the big stone door of the tomb and then cover for her when Stefan inevitably asks where she is. Right. Just a note on the architecture of this tomb. There are suddenly a conveniently placed set of stairs leading down into the tomb, rather than the random hole in the ground that Bonnie fell through in season 1 and couldn't climb back out of until Stefan came to rescue her by super jumping out of there.
I have to assume
I don't know how that happened.
I have to assume they're getting in through the normal entrance of the tomb, right? The tomb is under the church.
But I mean, if there's an entrance of the tomb that leads to the same spot Bonnie fell in, why didn't she just walk up those stairs?
Maybe it was closed off. Oh no, she was on the outside of the door, right? When she first fell in.
She was right in front of the door. So, I don't know. An earthquake revealed some hidden stairs that hadn't been revealed before.
I was buried for 150 years.
So yeah, Elena has come to speak to Catherine, who has been trapped in the tomb ever since the night of the masquerade ball. Caroline is a little uneasy, but Elena insists that Catherine is the only one who can tell her about Klaus and how they might be able to defeat him. Bold of Elena to assume there is even a way to beat Klaus? Like, has she learned nothing in the short time since Catherine came into her life? This woman is a chess master. Like, if Catherine is outmaneuvering everyone at every turn and faked her own death so well that almost no one found her for 145 years.
Right.
Like, does she not think Catherine would have killed Klaus by now if there was a way?
But I mean, this is Elena, right? Elena's not been doing this for 500 years. Elena is fresh to this. She still has some sense of hope and optimism. And also, as we'll come to learn, she has something Katherine doesn't. She has allies that she hasn't needed to coerce or manipulate. She has people on her end who are decently capable. So she's like, if I can learn everything I can, then surely there's a strategy that can be made here.
That's fair. I'm just like, this woman orchestrated the triggering of 2 Lockwood men's werewolf curses. She's got her own multiple spies and proxies working for her. I'm just like, Elena, we live in hope. It's fine.
I mean, yes, that's the power of being a protagonist. You live in hope.
Anyway, Elena says she needs to know the truth. Caroline warns her that she is asking the truth from someone who has probably never given it, but she does reluctantly open the tomb door for Elena. The 2 girls peer cautiously into the darkness of the tomb, and Elena's like, Katherine? And Katherine slowly slinks out of the shadows, and she looks a hot mess.
She looks a mess. She's in the same clothes from the night of the masquerade ball.
She is. A correction from last week. I said that when Damon put her into the tomb, she was barefoot. She was actually still wearing her heels at that point. She's now barefoot.
Oh, she said, I can't wear these things. They're too much work. Walking around in these death traps.
Her little beehive has deflated. Her skin looks colorless. She's got dark circles under the eyes.
The deflation of the beehive is the true tragedy. That thing was an elaborate piece of work that we saw her painstakingly putting together. My goodness.
And when she's like, hello, Elena, come to watch me wither away. Her voice sounds as though all the while she's been in here, she's been smoking 20 packs a day and drinking no water at all. And I guess the latter is literally true, since she's been without food or drink.
Not a drop to drink, not a bite to eat for assumedly at least a week.
Catherine says to Caroline, goodbye, Caroline. Another echo to Caroline saying goodbye, Catherine, which was itself an echo.
It when you're the one who's trapped in the tomb. You're the one being left. But all right, power to you.
Elena assures Caroline that she'll be safe as long as she remains on her side of a tomb entrance. So Caroline leaves. Catherine asks Elena if Stefan knows that she's come to see her, and Elena ignores that question.
There you go. So I'm not here for immature bullshit. Please, I've got work to do.
She's like, you think you're gonna play me? I'm here to play you. I brought some things you might want. It looks like maybe there's some bedding, like a pillow and a blanket or something. She's like, yeah, I want to know about Klaus. And Catherine's like, oh, you know Klaus's name? Okay, cool. So you've learned a few things since we last talked. You've been busy. And Elena's like, I've also brought you this big, dusty old tome of the Petrova family. It has Petrova written on it. Once again, should be Petrov, but it's fine. We'll pretend this is like a documentation of all the women in the family. So it says Petrova. Elena tells Catherine, hey, this book contains your family history, but it says that the line ended with you. That's obviously not true, because here I am, your descendant through Isabel. Catherine is like, you're trying to incentivize me with this family keepsake?
Like I care.
Then Elena's like, okay, fine. I also brought a little bit of blood with me. At the sight of the blood, Catherine instinctively tries to vamp speed through the doorway, but she can't because the threshold spell is still there. Mm-hmm. And then Elena decides she's going to read Catherine for once. And she's like, wow, you look really bad. You're weak and hungry. How long will it be until you wither away completely? 10, 20 years? Must be painful to desiccate and mummify. I can't even imagine.
These moments, Elena, because she is, of course, employing empathy in the situation. I have no doubt Elena genuinely was asking that question, but it is also strategically placed. People who don't appreciate this character, I don't know what to tell you. You've got to look beyond the veneer and the perception to see what this girl's doing.
Especially when she's there to give Catherine a taste of her own medicine.
Yeah.
Because for once, she's the one holding the cards.
Yeah.
She's like, I've got stuff you want. You're going to give me the information that I need. So Elena pours the teensiest bit of blood from the bottle into a small plastic cup, and then she uses a stick to push the cup across the ground and over the threshold of a tomb. And I'm like, yes,
thinking
you're smart, because Catherine could snatch you through here if you just put your hand over this line for just a second. Catherine is mildly impressed, even if she is seething, and she tells Elena, you have the Petrova fire. She tells Elena that her history with Klaus is a long story that goes all the way back to England in 1492, after she left Bulgaria. Catherine then explains that her family, whom she calls Elena's true ancestors, she was disowned because, as she puts it, my indiscretions were not tolerated at the time. I had a baby out of wedlock. The shame.
The biggest shame a woman could do.
So Elena surmises the baby's existence was kept secret, which is why Catherine's family tree is officially said to have ended with Catherine. And it's like, Catherine had a sister though, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Because I don't know anything more about that girl.
So Catherine is like, yeah, I gave my baby away, and then I was banished to England. I have thoughts.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you were banished to England by who?
The community?
Your family? Your community? And how? Because I've been wondering this for a long time. Why was a young Bulgarian girl sent alone all the way to the other end of the continent? Like, was it?
Yeah.
Was it really customary for a family to be like so ashamed of their unwed daughter having a child that they would force her to leave the country?
I mean,
And then how would
exile
they
was not
enforce
uncommon,
that?
certainly, in that region, that era. It's possible she was just cast out of whatever area she was, and then that was the nearest. Like, that's a place where it's like you can make a life for yourself even as like a lone woman whose honor has been spoiled or whatever. I don't know.
The banishment, because I'm like, Bulgaria is a country with decent size, especially for 15th century people. She could have moved to another part.
True.
So her being banished from the land is like, did her entire nation drive her out? Like, she can't have been the only girl in that era to get pregnant without a husband. And then
How?
and then like, was this like child's existence kept a secret so well that the history books didn't even know the Petrova family had continued without her? Like, how did they enforce that?
Wouldn't the baby have been raised under a different name? Because the baby was given away.
Yeah, but I'm like, if the baby can be sent to a different family and no one will be any the wiser to where the baby comes from, then surely Catherine could have gone to a different town and no one would have been any the wiser who she was.
I see. I don't know. I guess in my mind, it was less to do with you're trying to get beyond the scope of who knows who you are and who that family is. It was like, where could a young single woman who's by herself, right, because she's been exiled, be able to both safely and successfully establish a life for themselves? And I don't know what the region was like at the time.
I mean, 15th century Europe, I'm pretty sure it was bad all around.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, was for whatever reason, England at the time, like there was some sense of, you know, I don't know, maybe the court system there, she was able to gain some sort of safety or security. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, the countries that border Bulgaria are Serbia, Romania, North Macedonia, Greece, and Turkey in the modern era. I don't know what those would have been like in 15th century Europe, but I'm like, she skipped over all these places that linguistically and culturally would have felt more familiar. And she was like, I'm gonna go to the western end of the continent, cross the English Channel, go to England, and learn a second language. And since doing that on foot probably wouldn't have been what people did, that means she sailed all the way around, what, like Eastern Europe? Like, let me see.
Let's look at a map. The Ottoman Empire was doing some shit around this time, right? So maybe that's also a consideration. I know Turkey, which it wasn't always called Turkey. In the time of like Constantinople.
I mean, I could understand her maybe not going to that country because they're like, already there's like a religious barrier there for her.
Yeah.
She would have been growing up in like probably like an Eastern Orthodox place. But I'm just like, even if you sail to England from Bulgaria, you have to go like round and through the Mediterranean. So she skipped over like Italy, Spain, Portugal, which would have taken less
She said,
time.
I want none of that shit.
Nah, I don't want these romance languages. I'm gonna go to England.
Maybe she was like, because they're talking about old world, new world. Maybe this was the time of like, but then again, it was Portugal who was, Portugal and Netherlands who were the first to start like doing sailing from Europe. So I don't know.
Strange. It kind of feels like the plot just put her there because her assumed identity was an English name.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that could have easily been a fabrication, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because she wasn't even going by Katherine Pierce when she lived in England.
Yeah,
as a human.
she was Katerina Petrova. She was very clearly an Eastern European girl. I don't know, man. But to be fair, she meets Elijah, who turns out to be a Nordic guy but has a Hebrew name. So, like, what is anything?
I mean, you know, maybe Esther had run into some early Christians and she was like, I like the name.
When? From the Kingdom of Norway.
Or maybe she ran into some Jewish people. I mean, they were in Europe.
Again, in the Kingdom of Norway?
Listen, Esther itself is a Hebrew name, so I don't know what to tell you.
Sometimes the show, man. Listen, we're gonna pretend that it all works.
So is Rebecca, for that matter.
Yeah.
It's like you've got this family with Esther, Rebecca, and Elijah, which are these Hebrew names.
Are
And then
any of
everything
their
else is like
names
Germanic.
Nordic?
Finn is Nordic. It literally means man of Finland.
Okay.
I guess Henrik, Niklaus, and Michael are all like
That all
vaguely
works.
Germanic.
Yeah.
And then,
Michael's
of course, Freya,
also
that's
Hebrew.
literally like a Norse goddess.
Wait, let's see. So, Michael is a masculine given name, a variant of the Hebrew name Michael, which means
Oh no, Michael
who
is
like
Hebrew.
God.
You're right. I think
Yeah.
I was thinking of the K spelling. As a
But
more
it is
Germanic one.
used predominantly throughout Scandinavia. So is it just that Michael, as used in Scandinavia, is a modern thing, and then they named this guy with a modern Scandinavian name rather than an ancient one? And that's where the mistake came in.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted to name him Eric at one point.
Eric
Which
is like
might be more accurate.
properly like Germanic. Now that was like Leif
Yeah.
Erikson, like, you know, that one works. I think, yeah, that's the
They
issue
wanted
where
Eric, and then they were like, "No, True Blood already has an Eric."
No, that comparison would have been drawn.
I like Michelson as a surname better than Erickson, so
I like Ericsson as a surname too. It also makes me think of Sony Ericsson, the
Really?
phone brand.
you would have wanted to hear, "Oh, we're Elijah, Rebecca, and Klaus, the Ericksons."
The Ericssons.
It sounds like they're a
the
reality TV
Michelson
family.
sounds cool in retrospect. We're not gonna make the comparison when there's been 10 years of Michelson existence. Come on now. But yeah, I think they named all of these characters like what are modern and now Scandinavian names, not considering that they may not have been names in the 10th century. So I think that's the issue here.
That's funny. I mean, we don't really know anything about Esther's culture. We just know that later on it's made explicit that she wasn't a Viking. Michael was from a Viking culture.
But then Viking culture doesn't span the entirety of Scandinavia. The Vikings were a very specific group. They were other peoples within.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't know. Maybe Esther had some Jewish in her. We don't know.
We need to not say it like that, is all I'll say. Let me look up Dahlia as a name and see what the hell, because I know it's a flower.
I mean, Dahlia is just a flower.
I know.
I have no idea where it comes
But
from.
where does that come from? Wow, it's native to Mexico and Central America, so who knows?
Wait, so Dahlia is
Look at
even
this
younger than... Wow, the name is... All right, well, my headcanon is that Esther has some Hebrew ancestry. The name was passed down, even if the culture wasn't necessarily...
Dahlia might be Spanish, because it seems to be Nahuatl to Spanish, because it's originally like an Aztec era like flower.
Again, imagine if the Michelsons had been POCs. This
And
could have
listen,
all been avoided.
This could all have been avoided. It's crazy to make all these European characters and then still mess it up. Anyways, back to Catherine and her banishment.
So, yeah. Catherine's like, I adjusted to life in England. I quickly became English, which she says in this faux accent. And I'm like, Katherine Pierce, the chameleon that you are. It was in England that she caught the eye of a nobleman named Klaus. And she admits that at first she was interested in him, but then she figured out what he
learned
was,
who he was
and what he wanted
and
from
said,
her.
"Ew."
And she's like, then I ran like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, that becomes one of her 3 defining traits, running.
And you know what? That is the smartest thing you could have done in that scenario. Because she's human again. She's 17, maybe 18 at this point, given how much time it took to travel. She meets these ancient monsters and learns what they have planned for her and says, I'm out. Smart, brave, efficient.
She said no heart emoji.
No thanks. Go with God, be well. I'm out. I respect that shit.
So we get a flashback to 1492. Catherine is running scared through the woods. She trips and falls because, of course, she does. This is TV. She hurts herself as she falls, drawing blood. She's like on the forest floor, powerless and terrified. And it's like, wow, this is not a Catherine with which we are familiar.
Yeah.
She hears people approaching. Not too far away, we see Elijah and some underlings searching for her through the trees. Elijah can sense she's nearby, and he's like, I can smell your blood. And he tells her it's pointless to run. Klaus will find her wherever she is. And then suddenly, another vampire comes up to Elijah. It's Trevor!
Yeah.
And he's like, Elijah, I totally saw her over there in those
She's
trees.
super
Follow
in
me
that
this
direction,
way.
my lord. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the blood you already smelled this way.
I think he does say, I spotted some of her blood over there. And it's like, okay, well.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. It's a trail.
After they've been led away, Katerina climbs to her feet, and then suddenly Trevor is beside her. He like covers her mouth so she doesn't scream and give herself away. And he's like, surprise, I'm actually helping you. I can't lead Elijah and the others astray for much longer. And Catherine's like, well, I can't run anymore. I'm tired. I'm a human girl running in a dress.
I didn't even get to touch the hors d'oeuvres because I learned what they wanted from me before lunch was served. Like, this sucks.
So Trevor's like, no, there's a cottage where you'll be safe. Head off in that direction. And he sends her off. Back in the present, Elena's like, oh, what did Klaus want from you? And then Catherine's like, the same thing he'll want from you, dummy, to break the curse. And Elena's like, yeah, Rose told me about that, and I'm a Petrova doppelganger. I've got to be sacrificed in order to break the sun and moon curse. Catherine is like, yeah, Klaus wanted to drain every single drop of blood from my body.
Yeah.
Elena gives Catherine some more blood, and she's like, what is it about the Petrova bloodline that Klaus is interested in? And Catherine's like, well, the curse was bound by the sacrifice of Petrova blood, which is crafty with their spells. The doppelganger was created as a way to be able to undo the spell. We will later learn this is absolutely not true. But
not true. But the thing is, these people are extrapolating, right? Even because the furthest back this knowledge goes is the originals themselves. And at this point, Esther is dead.
Yeah.
Who actually did the spell.
Yeah.
So she can't tell them, hey guys, I actually bootlegged this knowledge. I don't know what all this nonsense is about.
Esther, you pirate.
She the original Napster. She's a uTorrent queen.
She is a white rock and roll American star from the 50s, stealing black people's music and claiming it's her own.
Speak on it.
Popularizing it.
Stole from an ancient Greek, maybe Ethiopian icon. Okay, we see you, Miss Ma'am.
But yeah, it's what Catherine believes to be the truth at this point, and probably what the writers believe to be the truth as well. So Catherine tells Elena that once the doppelganger reappeared, the spell could be broken. And Elena's like, so you ran before Klaus killed you? And Catherine's like, something like that. So we flash back to 1492 again, and we see Katerina arriving at the cottage Trevor sent her to. By this point, the sun has come up. She bangs on the door, begging for someone to help her, and an elderly woman opens the door. And Katerina's like, please let me in. This woman, in a very American-sounding accent. This is England.
We all try.
But anyway, this woman is like, I don't invite strangers into my home. And Katerina's like, no, Trevor sent me here for protection. Katerina calls him by his modern name, despite the fact we will later learn that Trevor's given name in this era was actually the more period-accurate Trefor.
Oh, okay.
And despite the fact that Elijah, in the episode Rose, already said Trevor was a new name. He's like, whatever name he's using these days. What, Trevor? So these flashbacks throw that all out the window. Maybe they weren't filmed in this order. It happens sometimes when you're shooting something.
Yeah, listen, broadcast television, we've got a schedule to keep. It's fine. I take it as artistic license. They're like, we all know what's happening here. Don't worry about it.
I mean, I guess if we were being pedantic, we'd be like, this is not even how English was pronounced.
You know, I was going to say, you
century.
said this woman with an American accent. As it turns out, the English, at least from the era of like Shakespeare, supposedly sounded more like Southern American English in terms of like its pronunciation.
Oh gosh.
It would have been closer to that than to like RP, which they're speaking in now, right? Trevor, Catherine, and Rose. So maybe the woman running that cottage is actually the most period accurate of them all. So
she's the only real person on set from the 15th century.
Exactly.
I don't know Hollywood cast accurately. Next time, find someone from the 15th century to play 15th century
roles.
role.
Time machine as a standard for television budget and hire someone from the right time. God damn it.
A younger woman suddenly appears in the doorway and curses, damn him, always making promises I can't keep.
Real.
It's 15th century Rose.
Lauren Cohen, my love.
The old woman is Rose's like compelled familiar. It's the whole thing of like, oh, vampires staying in a human's home so that they can keep other vampires out. She does tell the woman to let Katerina in, and then she tells the woman to bring Katerina some water and something to eat. Katerina's like, oh, thank you. And then she pulls out the moonstone and she's like, Trevor told me to show this to you.
Yeah.
To verify her identity. And she also says that Trevor said that Rose would help her to freedom. Rose, however, is like, what?
Absolutely
Did you
not.
steal that from Klaus? You brought that into my house. You brought stolen Now I'm implicated.
You've
Girl,
signed my death sentence by walking into my home. What the hell?
Katerina is like, well, the stone was meant to be part of the sacrifice ritual. I didn't really understand the ins and outs, but I was like, let me just take it as I run because, you know, better for them to be missing as many ingredients as possible.
Exactly.
And then Rose is like, sweetie, people do not escape from Klaus. Everyone who tries ends up back in his grasp, and anyone who helps them dies.
Yeah.
Katerina is like, I know the risk you bring on yourself by giving me aid. And Rogue is like, I'm risking nothing. At nightfall, I will bring you back to Klaus and beg him to show us both mercy. I love how Rose, she's not unkind, but she's very much like, I'm not dying for you. I don't know who you are.
I have hard
sorry.
lines, my dear. I'm sorry to tell you. And I mean, in a sense, fair enough, but also, god damn.
Also, it works well into the script that Rose doesn't have any daylight jewelry because that's the only reason she doesn't immediately take Katerina back to Klaus. She's like, the sun is up and I can't leave, but as soon as it's nighttime, we're going. So go rest, get ready, pack your things. She tosses Katerina into a room and locks the door. Back in the present, Rose takes Damon to meet her acquaintance Slater, a geeky vampire historian of sorts. He knows who Damon is and that Damon was turned by Catherine and that Catherine's real name is Katerina Petrova. And he also reveals that he gave Rose some sort of tip about the tomb under Fell's church. I don't know whether this was a tip that the tomb existed and vampires like Catherine, who were assumed to be dead after the fire of 1864, could have survived down there, or whether it was a tip that Catherine might not have been in the tomb at all and that Rose should check. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, he gives very conspiracy theorist vibe, right? He's like vampire QAnon, essentially, is the vibe that Slater gives. So it makes sense that he's like, hey, this story came out of Mystic Falls that, like, Catherine died, but, like, we all know Catherine. At least I know Catherine from legend. Doesn't seem like the type to just die like a chump. Like, let me try and figure out what's going on in that town to see how could she have possibly done some chicanery.
It didn't make sense. Speaking of the tomb under Fell's church, back over with our doppelgangers, Elena says that, well, Rose obviously didn't end up taking Catherine back to Klaus. Catherine's like, no, she didn't, but not because she had a change of heart. Back to the flashback, Rose comes into the room she'd locked Katerina in. She tells Katerina that it's nighttime, time to go. Rose is holding some rope. I guess she's gonna tie Catherine up.
Yeah, just to make sure.
But as she approaches Katerina, she's like, you look a little feeble and sickly. And she pulls the covers off her and she's like, now why is there a gaping wound spewing blood from your abdomen? When did that happen? And Katerina's like, I tripped while I was running through the woods. And Rose is like, girl, this is an obvious lie. I have a vampire nose. I would have smelled the blood as soon as you came in. And then she finds a knife hidden in the blanket. And she's like, oh, I see. You're trying to unalive yourself here. No. And Katerina's like, I would rather die than go back to Klaus.
Better that.
Please just let me die.
Better suicide than be sacrificed in someone else's game.
Rose is having none of it. She tells Katerina that her death would sign Trevor's death warrant. So she bites her wrist and draws some blood. She force feeds it to Katerina and heals her. And Katerina's looking like mortified. She's like, oh no, I've been force-fed vampire blood. I can't die. They won't even allow me the dignity of choosing my own way out. And I'm like, performance. As we will later see, performance. Because at that moment, Trevor bursts into the room and he's like, where is she? And Rose, like, vamp rushes him out of the room and she's like, what the hell are you doing, Trevor? Like, what you have done is gonna get us both killed. Our only hope is to bring her back to Klaus and be like, look, we brought her back. No harm, no foul. We're really sorry. Trevor wasn't thinking straight. I didn't know. Please forgive us. While they're discussing this, Katerina's like, ooh, a discarded rope that Rose left on the bed. And she takes it back outside the room. Trevor's like, no, Rose, if we return Katerina to Klaus, she'll be sacrificed and killed. Rose is like, well, yes. It's a crying shame, but it's not our problem. And Trevor's like, I love her, Rose. She's like, oh, no. No, honey, not love. Not the thing that drags down every vampire in this universe. I think she assumed Trevor was just being silly or taking mercy and she could convince him that, no, self-preservation above all else. But now that you've brought love into the equation, she's like, oh, okay, so logic has gone out the window. She warns him that Klaus will kill you. He will not stop until he's hunted all of us down. And then Trevor's like, then we shall run until we die. And I'm like, well,
it's a romantic, Trevor, you know.
You got your wish, Trevor. They suddenly hear a commotion from the bedroom and they hurry back inside to see that Katerina has strung herself up with Rose's discarded rope and hanged herself. She's dead.
Yeah. I don't think that, well, I mean, yes and no. The earlier bit was a performance. I do think it was like a plan A and then a contingency plan, right? Which she is very well known for. I think she was genuinely ready to die on her own terms rather than be used and sacrificed. And then the opportunity presented itself. Or that she was like, if she chooses to heal me with vampire blood, then I will take that path.
I just believed it was all part of the play because Catherine's whole thing is, I do what I do to keep myself alive. And it's been that way for 500 years. So I don't see her being like, I'm gonna off myself on my own terms just to escape from you. Because it's like, everything she did was so that she wouldn't die.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. I just am in that moment being told by a 500-year-old vampire that, like, no, I will not give you shelter. I'm taking you back to where you need to go. I'm sure one of her options was, I just die to keep this man from getting what he wants.
I mean, Rose wasn't 500 at that point, but I think she was listen, I know how vampirism works and how turning works. I have an idea because I've been running through these woods all night and I'm tired. You know what would help? Having super speed.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm so curious because regardless of the why, the thing that happened is she went from Bulgaria to England. And that journey from A to B cannot have been easy. Again, as a 17-year-old girl, the sort of missing information we don't have a lens into is what shapes her from that 15, 16-year-old who gives birth out of wedlock and is exiled by her family to this person who, when shown that a bunch of old-ass supernatural beings are trying to get you in some mess in which you're gonna die, you immediately go into scheme mode. What helped you develop that cunning and that tenacity and that level at which you operate where you're like, I'm getting out of this one way or another? It's so curious and so like... it's so
Katerina,
interesting and tragic.
Years.
Yeah. The missing years of Catherine.
Need it.
And you may argue that, like, it's more interesting to leave that blank, right? To spin out your own theories and make your own assumptions of what could have happened in between. And just knowing that that journey and those experiences made her who she is at this point in England. And that's the better fit for some people. And listen, out of what happens there, because as you say, she hangs herself, and because she has vampire blood in her system, she turns into a vampire and goes, listen, it was rather you than me. I'm getting out of here.
I love it.
With my new vampire powers. It's like, because then we cut back to present day with Elena going, you sacrificed Rose and Trevor so you could get away? They were your friends. And Catherine's like, girl, you haven't realized what the situation is here. You gotta do what you need to do for number one. Because that's the only person you can rely on in this life. And it's like, the fact that her experience in 2 years of life, leave alone the 500 she's lived since then, already at that point, freshly 18, now a vampire, is like, this is the philosophy I will live by. Is so tragic.
Also, when the flashback ends, Elena is like stunned that Catherine killed herself. She's like, what? You did that? And that's when Catherine explains that while the sacrifice requires a human doppelganger, so becoming a vampire not only saved her life and made her stronger, but it also meant that she was now useless to Klaus. And then Elena's like, well, you didn't really escape. You've been on the run from him ever since.
Well, because of course Klaus is a monster who wants retribution, which it's so funny to me, and it makes sense because it's Klaus, right? That's how he operates. The idea that Catherine ran away from being sacrificed to break this curse that we think is the Sun and Moon curse is framed as a betrayal of Klaus and the originals. And it's like, excuse me? My girl escaped, you monsters. My girl got away and survived, and then you hunted her down for 5 centuries. Are you mad?
I do love that Catherine admits that she underestimated Klaus's spirit for vengeance, but she does say, living out of a suitcase is better than dying so you can have your blood spilled over some silly rock.
What an icon, man.
And she's not wrong.
She's not wrong at all. That's why I was like, I'm convinced that one of her options was, I'd rather die than be sacrificed for Klaus and his meats. Like, that is a better death to me than to be used. I can believe that, like, one of her many options in that 2 hours she spent before nightfall at Rose's cottage was, maybe I die in this, and that's fine. Because, listen, vampire doppelganger is useless, a dead doppelganger more so, you know?
I think she was hoping that once she was useless, Klaus would be like, oh, well, I guess that's over. The naivety of youth.
That's the thing. I'm so curious that, like, beyond this point, when we look back on Catherine's time in this period, her connections are framed around Elijah. And Trevor, of course, but Trevor lives and dies in this episode, so I wouldn't worry about him too much. Of the originals, Elijah's the one she's connected to. Even in the flashbacks, I don't know if it's just the flashbacks in this episode or some we see later when we get more about Elijah.
Yeah, it's when we see Elijah talking to Elena later on.
Right, we see that Elijah and Catherine met first, but that Klaus then sort of swooped in as I guess at the time we were thinking older, more charming brother, which is like, I don't buy into that. I always read Klaus as like, not even asexual. Klaus to me is sexless. Like, I understand that Joseph Morgan is an attractive person in real life. Klaus, the character, is sexless to me, except when pertains to Stefan Salvatore. But that's a whole other conversation. The story tells us that Klaus was sort of wooing Katherine, which is so odd to me. And I'm curious if she was ever at all charmed by that, and at what point the turn happened. I like to think she clocked his vibe
that she does mention that.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Okay, good.
But insofar as this episode is involved, Katherine, seeing the duality between her and Elena, the very obvious similarity of their circumstances, she's like, hey, maybe you could become a vampire too. And she bites her wrist and she's like, do you want some of my blood? The wound is closing. Going, gone. Oh well.
And listen, obviously she's just trying to get out of the tube. But in a way also, she's like, hey, this is the smartest way out for you, girl. Like, you're gonna realize very soon you don't always have the luxury of choice.
Oof. And it's a pity the Trevor and Rose scenes really show us Katerina solidifying into the Katherine Pierce we know.
Yeah.
Because when she wakes up in transition, like, Trevor is there and he's like, oh my gosh, what have you done, Katerina? I was gonna help you escape and run. And then she's like, yeah, but running was never gonna be enough. You know that, right? And he's like, it was gonna be enough for me. And I'm like, this man is so whipped.
Right. And truly from Katherine's point of view,
doesn't.
it's like, if you were trying to save me, this is better, right? It's just you framed this situation around your devotion to me and your affection. Me as your love, who is going to be stashed in a pocket so you can run. Again, Trevor, this romantic, has not considered Katherine's agency or choices in this moment. What changes about them running away by her becoming a vampire?
It is strange that he wants her to stay human. I'm
Right.
like, if you loved her, didn't you want to be with her forever? Like, what?
It's all this purity nonsense again, right? And it's probably why she was so pissed off by that too. It's just like all the same nonsense I tried to escape back in my hometown. And you're trying to put that shit on me? No. I'm doing what I need to do. If you're with me, you're with me. Or else, get out of the way. And I respect that.
Rose, on the other hand, Rose is like, Trevor, my guy, can't you see what happened? She clearly used your obvious crush on her to escape these people. And then she tricked me into feeding her blood so that she'd turn her. Klaus is definitely gonna kill us now. And Katerina's like, and for that, I am sorry. And I'm like, I think in that moment she really does mean that. I don't think she's super evil yet. That's when Rose is like, okay, I'm just gonna stake you now while you're in transition. And unfortunately, Katerina's like, block with the human familiar. The poor lady gets stabbed in the neck. Katherine doesn't miss a beat, drinks that blood down, and completes her transition, becoming a vampire.
It happens so quick.
Rose and Trevor are just like standing there frozen. They're like, And I'm like, guys, move. You're both vampires who are older and faster than her. Why are you frozen?
It's so crazy.
But I love that the last thing she says, Katerina is like, please understand. And Rose is like, you've just signed our death sentences. And Katerina replies, better you die than I. And then she throws the woman's body at them and vamp speeds into the night.
Crazy.
And yeah, Elena is like, that's horrible. You doomed these two people who had done you no harm to an eternity of being on the run. The same thing you've been struggling with, these 500 years of fleeing from Klaus.
Yeah.
She's even like, by the way, did you know Trevor just got killed because of this? And Katherine doesn't even look up from the book she's paging through. She's just like, really? Surprised. I never would have thought he lasted this long.
Katherine! But also, if she feels it, she's not gonna show that to Elena. Please, her dullest dishwater doppelganger.
I think any sympathy she might have felt for them was buried long ago. Maybe she even convinced herself that they were killed long ago so that she didn't have to feel guilty about it anymore. She's like, Klaus probably caught them and they died.
Yeah, close that chapter, move on.
But she says to Elena, because Elena's like, oh my gosh, clutching her pearls.
Exactly.
At Katherine's behavior. And Katherine's like, I was looking out for myself, Elena. I will always look out for myself. If you're smart, you'll do the same.
Clutching her pearls, Katherine's like, I wasn't born with pearls, Miss Ma'am. I don't have the luxury to consider the moral and ethical implications of everything I do. I have been on the run for years. And you don't understand that because you've lived in the safety of your bubble here in Mystic Falls. Obviously now huge powerful forces are coming for you, but you've got Stefan, you've got Damon most of the time, you've got a witch on your side, you've got friends, you've got all this stuff that I never had. So to look down on me and what I did, kind of crazy. And in some ways.
Speaking of the cast of characters who surround Elena, this is the conversation during which Elena figures out that I think there might be some other ingredients for this sacrifice, given all the pieces you were putting into place. And Catherine's like, tee-hee, yes, you need a vampire and a werewolf to be sacrificed as well. You need a witch to do the spell. Elena's like, oh, Bonnie is gonna be the witch? I don't know how they were planning to force Bonnie to do that, but Catherine's like, yeah, I had a witch, Lucy, but you scared her off.
The way they forced Bonnie to do anything, just snatch one of her friends.
That's true. Catherine is like, I had a werewolf Mason. Your boy toy killed him, so I made a new one out of Tyler. Elena's like, and Caroline's gonna be the vampire. And Catherine's like, well, any vampire would have done, but actually, you know what? Now that you mention it, I like the symmetry of it being Caroline. Feels poetic.
God.
And Elena's like, so you were just gonna hand all of us over to be killed. And Catherine repeats herself from 500 years back, and she's like, better you die than I.
Yeah.
And she goes back into her tomb.
Oh.
By the end of the episode, Stefan has shown up. He catches Elena where she is. He's like, listen, I know you spent all day talking, trading, stories with Katerina over here. She's a liar. Don't believe anything she says. Catherine pops back into the doorway and she's like, well, wait, actually, I haven't told you the best part about how I eventually managed to get back to Bulgaria as a young vampire. Showed up at my family home, found dead bodies in the yard, entered, and that should have been her first clue that she was able to enter the house at all.
Yeah.
Entered the house to find her dad impaled against the wall with a sword, and then her mother and sister dead in the bedroom. And it's such a heartbreaking scene. You see the loss of any hope and innocence this girl had die as she's weeping over her mother's body. It's also why I said a pin in the sister thing, because her sister also died unmarried and childless. So that's why the bloodline was said to have ended there.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's so sad. She's weeping. She's mainly weeping for her mother. She does spare a terrified glance at her sister's body as well. She doesn't really look at her dad because it's no, bitch, you banished me.
But it's still her dad. I'm sure she was sad.
Yeah. She warns Elena that, I ran, I turned myself, I used and betrayed people. Klaus still got his revenge, and no matter what you do, he will make you suffer. Whether it's you, your friends, your family, everyone you ever loved. And Stefan's like, no, Elena, I'll protect you. And Catherine's like, lol, okay. If you think so. It might help if you had the Moonstone, but, that's in here with me.
Yeah, crazy that you left that in here. Kind of wild.
Stefan's like, that's what it is. You want to trade the Moonstone, so this has all just been fabrications to trick us into letting you out of here, isn't it? He calls her a manipulative, psychotic bitch. Second time Stefan has called her that. Like you said, he doesn't usually fling that word around.
Rarely, and it's often for her.
And then Catherine's like, wait, you think I want to get out of here? Oh no, Stefan. I like being in here.
Perfectly
because when
safe.
Klaus shows up to kill us all, and he will, I'll be in the tomb where no vampire can enter because they can't get out. I'll be the safest psychotic bitch in town. She's so powerful and sure of herself in that moment, but her final scene in the episode is her paging through the Petrova book with tears in her eyes, especially when she comes across the sketch of her and her parents. Probably the first time she's seen their faces in centuries.
In so long, the thing about losing... Oh God, not to get maudlin, but losing loved ones. I can't imagine losing loved ones in a time where there aren't facsimiles of their faces, but you start to lose your sense of them in your memory. So to see an immortalized version of them in present day must be so heartbreaking, but also such a gift. It's another one of those honest, isolated moments we get of Catherine. I think the other one was earlier in season 2 when she's remembering something from 1864 of her and Stefan, and then this moment of her seeing this image of her family. You really cut through all the bullshit of Catherine to get to the core of who is this person really behind all the lies and the manipulations and the farce and the cunning and the trickery and the performance and pageantry. It's there is a girl deep down somewhere in here that cares about things. Wild.
It's a tragic episode. It's beautifully done. In spite of all the horrible things she's done, the people she's used, the people she's gotten killed.
The people she's
her
gotten
list of victims is long, and it's usually not even personal. Anna, Pearl, the Tomb Vampires, Mason, Trevor. It's not that she had anything against these people. It's just that this is what she felt she had to do to survive. But yeah, now we know why.
Yeah.
And I guess we're richer for it. But poor Catherine.
Poor Catherine and poor Elena.
In the next episode, strangely, she changes her mind about wanting to be in the tomb.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, she's still in there without blood and without entertainment, frankly. It gets boring just sitting around doing nothing.
She does say that she's bored.
Right. We all live through lockdown. We know how you start to crawl up the walls.
She decides she wants to like make a bargain for the Moonstone, and then Stefan's like, I thought you wanted to be in here. And she's like, I've had time to reconsider. And Damon says, because you're hungry. And Catherine says, I'm starving, Damon, and dirty. But above all, I'm bored. Oh. At least running from Klaus wasn't boring.
At least I was jet setting.
Which is a wild thing to say.
She has to look at the silver linings, listen.
But she claims that she'll give them the Moonstone if they let her out, and then she will leave Mystic Falls forever. And I'm like, guys, if you believe that, I got some magic beans I want to sell you. But this is the episode in which they're like, okay, cool. We're gonna get into the tomb, snatch the stone, get out. Bonnie, you can lower the seal. Jeremy's like, Bonnie can't lower the seal. She's not strong enough. Bonnie's like, no, I can try.
He's like, it'll overwhelm her. It's gonna take up too much energy, because Jeremy's been noticing that when Bonnie uses too much power, she starts passing out, she starts bleeding, and she hasn't told anyone about this. So Jeremy's like, nah, girl.
And he knows that she barely accomplished the same spell the last time when she had help. And her help died afterwards.
Yeah.
So Stefan and Damon are like, well, Catherine's been starving for days now. We can probably take her on. But just in case, Bonnie's like, cool, I'm going to do a spell. I need something that belonged to Catherine. Damon looks at Stefan. Stefan's like, okay, I'll go get my photo that I still have.
Goddamn photo. At least it had a use, right? At least at the end of the day, it's like, Stefan, for whatever reason, the fact that you kept this photo has become useful. So thank God.
Whatever that picture is made of, it's apparently metallic, because Bonnie says she's going to burn the metal into ash and spell it so that when they throw the ash on Catherine, it'll incapacitate her for a few seconds. Not very long, the plan hits a snag when Jeremy steals some of the ash and is like, you know what, I'm gonna go on my own because I'm a human and I can get in and out of a tomb without Bonnie having to lower the spell.
Yeah. Oh, it might have been
Jeremy.
It might have been a lithograph then, because I said that in the first session and then I cut it because I was like, I don't know if that was used for photography, but then that would mean it must have been a really good sketch of Catherine that was made using lithography if it was metal.
I mean, Bonnie specifically says metal, because I'm like, I don't think metal turns to ash, but she's using like some transmutation, I guess.
Yeah, has to be.
So yeah, Jeremy goes to the tomb.
Fool.
It is nice when we have these brief moments of Catherine being surprised. Boy, are they brief, but they are nice. Because she sees Jeremy and she's like, oh, naive little Gilbert. If you want the Moonstone, you're going to have to come in here and get it. Jeremy fires a stake at her and hits her in the stomach.
Sure does.
Flings some of the ash at her and knocks her out.
Listen, he's a fool, but he's a brave fool. I won't say anything bad about this boy. He really tried.
He wastes some of his time looking for the Moonstone on her person. Like, he's patting her down and he's like, oh, damn, it's not there. Goes into the tomb, finds it way at the back, and he's like, okay, cool, got it. Rushes out. Unfortunately, Catherine gets up, grabs him, and attacks him. But he does manage to fling the stone across the threshold before she gets to him.
Good boy.
So it's at least out of the tomb now. But Catherine now has a live-in snack. So when Bonnie and the Salvatores show up, they're like, wait, why is the Moonstone here on the floor? Did Catherine just like put it outside for us? Catherine shows up and she's like, surprise, I've got Jeremy now. I'm feeding on him. And Stefan's like, damn it, so she's strong again. Well, there goes our other advantage.
You know what I would have done? I would have gotten like a K95 mask. Fill that with the ashes of this lithograph of Catherine. Do exactly what Jeremy did. Shoot her with the crossbow and then throw the ashes so that she's disabled. Then put the mask over her face and secure it around her ears so the ash remains over her face. And she's continually knocked out.
I don't even know how long the ash lasts.
That's
the
true.
Spell was not explained. I don't even know how potent it is now that Jeremy took some of it and diminished the amount.
Yeah. Symbolic magic at the end of the day, you know. I guess I can't be considering quantities.
But Katherine tells them not to worry because she knows that Jeremy's got his resurrective Gilbert ring, so she can just keep feeding on him until he dies and he'll keep coming back. So Bonnie's like, no, it's okay. I'll do the spell. I'll lower the seal. Jeremy's like, no, she's not strong enough. Bonnie starts to chant. The torches flare up. Katherine's like, ooh, something's happening. Unfortunately, Bonnie's nose starts to bleed. Jeremy continues to shout at her to stop. Katherine loses patience and like elbows him in the face. It's so funny. Bonnie ends up collapsing. And then Stefan is now concerned for Bonnie. He's like trying to rouse her and is like, Bonnie, wake up, please. And Katherine's like, yes, please, because I'm still in here. They're like, well, we're not getting Jeremy out that way. And Katherine's like, too bad. I guess I'm gonna keep feeding. So Stefan vamp speeds in and pulls Jeremy out. But now he's stuck inside the tomb. At the end of the episode, Elena wants to go and see him, but Damon's like, you'll go in there and Katherine might just kill you.
That's true.
So he refuses. He does speak to Stefan himself, though, and he promises to not let Elena come back there. Stefan's like, yeah, protect her no matter what happens. And Damon's like, yep, will do, and then leaves. And then Katherine comes up behind Stefan and is like, that right there was the biggest mistake you ever made.
And now he's trapped down here with her.
She stays writing these Delena fanfics, and now he's stuck in there with her.
Is that what she's talking about, Katherine?
That's what she's talking about. She's like, you sent your brother who's crushing on your girlfriend to like protect her while you can't leave this place and see what's going on. Really, Stefan? Rookie mistake.
God, I can't stand it. More importantly, though, now Stefan's stuck down here with Katherine. We're going to spend an entire episode with her.
He is, with his nemesis. So in the next episode, By the Light of the Moon, Damon tries to bring Stefan some home comforts, like some blood. But Stefan's like, well, if you give me that, Katherine will just force me to share it with her. And Damon's like, okay. Well, Bonnie's working on a plan to dispel the Moonstone to make it inert, which they assume will mean the sacrifice can't happen, and Elena will be saved. And Katherine's like, ooh, I'm warning you, Klaus will kill you all for messing with his plan. They ignore her, and Stefan's like, no matter what happens, just make sure that Elena is safe. And Katherine like rolls her eyes, and she's like, oh, is that all you ever talk about? Later on, because Stefan has refused blood in order to starve her, Katherine's like, oh, are we fasting now? We're so pious.
Oh, God.
And then she asks him how long he's actually ever gone without blood. And she describes how desiccation in reality is much worse than just the theory of it. And she says, your heart still beats, struggling to pump whatever blood remains. And then when it's gone, your veins rub together like sandpaper, which is excruciating. But Stefan tells her that the pleasure he will get from watching her suffer is greater than any pain he'll ever feel.
Wow! That's beautiful. God, I love Stefan. Also, yeah, we will learn he has done it many times before because that's the process Lexi would do to him if he ever fell off the wagon.
Yeah, having to dry out.
So he's used to desiccation.
But Katherine is very bored this episode, and she continues to like tease Stefan with this incessant flirtation.
Yeah.
She's like, it's stuffy and I've been in this dress for days. Want to help me out of it?
Katherine, get out!
She fully strips in front of him and she's like standing there with all her goods on display in her underwear.
Oh, God.
And she's like, Stefan, we're both in here. We might as well make the best of our time together. Stefan just gives her this smirk of like, ugh, as if. And then Katherine says, do you really think Damon is going to rush to get you out of this tomb when he now has what he wants? Elena all to himself? Given what's most certainly going on out there, I'd say you're free to do whatever you want in here.
Girl.
No one would ever know, Stefan.
Girl.
And I'm like, okay, firstly, not you accusing Elena of cheating on Stefan the minute he's stuck in this tomb.
To suggest it's happening the day after is a tad too far, Katherine. I would think it would take a little longer than that.
Also, that she promises Stefan, hey, we can
I will
have fun
tell
here, no one will
anybody.
ever know. I'm like, you would absolutely tell Elena. You would rub her face in this.
You'd be in her ear at all times saying, I got my man back, bitch. What you gonna do about it? The desperation, Katherine. This is not a good look for you, girl.
Stefan drives her wild. But yeah, she starts to caress his face and she's putting her hands on his body. She even kisses him. And Stefan lets her for a second, but then turns away. And then she pulls his face back and starts kissing him again. And then suddenly they're like having this passionate makeout session. And the audience is left thinking, wait, what?
Never.
And then suddenly Stefan wakes up and it was all a dream. She was in his head, messing with his mind again.
It's so awful. Disrespectful.
I'm like, Catherine, you stay violating this poor man.
Always.
Gosh.
Always. Any chance she gets, she's in his head. So gross.
And she's like, maybe I can do eternity in here after all.
Oh my god.
But later on in the episode, they do have a more mature conversation.
Yeah.
Where Catherine's like, oh, come on, talk to me. I'm bored. We can't just sit here in silence. And then Stefan's like, okay, cool. We could talk about how you regret all you've done to make my life miserable. Catherine says, what do you want me to say, Stefan? That I'm sorry for everything I've done?
God,
well, I'm
for
not.
what?
It's called self-preservation. I've been looking out for myself for 500 years.
Oy.
Yes, I've done terrible things, but I do love you, Stefan, even if you don't believe it. And I'm like, oof, abuser.
Yeah. It's hard to avoid. It's hard to talk around, but it's true.
But Stefan's like, okay, fine. If you really have some semblance of like affection and care in you, prove to me that there's something in you that's worth trusting. And she's like, why would I do that? You're still gonna hate me. Stefan's like, yeah, maybe. But maybe I'll see that there is something in you, worth caring about.
A lot of people can tell you this. I have a very large capacity for forgiveness, for better or worse.
Catherine's like, nah, you're playing me. And Stefan's like, oh, am I? And he leaves that lingering. And I'm like, you know what? You really are her kryptonite.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good that you've learned that you can use it.
Yeah.
He says that she can help them protect Elena. Catherine is like, oh, okay, so you want to find Klaus and kill him so that you can save her? And Stefan's like, yeah, where is he? Catherine's like, no, I don't know where he is, but I can help you. I will help you. And Stefan's like, yeah, for a price, I'm sure. Catherine's like, fine, I'll give you this freebie. Find Isabel. Isabel is a research expert and she found me. She's your best bet of finding Klaus. Then the episode ends on one of my favorite scenes. Elijah shows up to let Stefan out of the tomb. He's like, hey, I've been making plans with your girlfriend all day. We've made deals and bargains. Part of that bargain was to have my witches undo this spell because they're better than Bonnie. So you're free to go now. Well, firstly, when Elijah shows up, Catherine is like, Elijah.
Yeah.
And he's like, good evening, Katerina. Thank you for having the good sense to be frightened. As soon as Stefan has crossed the threshold, Catherine tries to vamp speed out, but Elijah, vamp speeds in front of her, and he compels her. He says, you're gonna stay right here until I tell you otherwise, because when Klaus arrives, he'll want to know exactly where you are. As Stefan leaves, Catherine's like, please, Stefan, don't leave me here. And Stefan's like, sorry, bye, Catherine.
Rip. My girl got me out of here. My girl who loves me. So I'm gonna go.
Catherine's not in the next episode. In episode 13, Daddy Issues. John Gilbert comes back to town, and nobody is happy.
The myth. The bastard.
Damon doesn't particularly trust him since he tried to burn him alive. Elena hates him more than ever. But Stefan's like, well, I went looking for Isabel and I found John.
So here's what we got.
That's when John tells him about the daggers, gives him the daggers and the white oak ash, and is like, yeah, go kill Elijah. No other details I need to give you. Put this in his heart and he'll be dead. At the end of that episode, John shows up at the tomb. When Catherine sees him, she's like, it's you. I was expecting someone else. And then John's like, yeah, I know you sent a message to Isabel. She sent me instead because she's busy. And Catherine's like, does Stefan know you're here? And John's like, girl, no one knows I'm here. This is between you, me, and Isabel. Catherine tells him that she just wants to get out of his tomb, and John's like, don't worry, I'm already on it. In the next episode, she's also not there, but we do see Mason's pack talking about her as this vampire chick they knew he was dating. I don't know whether this is a nickname they gave her, or this is how she introduced herself to them when she was Mason's girlfriend. They keep calling her Kathy.
Yes! Yes! I said one time that I was like, nobody calls her Kathy, and I don't know why. Finally, we found one instance. That's Kathy.
It's that twitchy little werewolf, Stevie. He keeps saying, yeah, Mason's vampire chick, Kathy.
You had to ruin it. I hate that little shit. I do not like Stevie. Oh, God. He thinks he's such hot shit. I hate him so much. Jules is the only one I like from that pack. Everyone else can choke and die.
And they do.
And they do.
In the next episode, episode 15, the dinner party, Damon goes to visit Catherine in the tomb. I don't know how long it's been since she snacked on Jeremy when he was stuck in there, but she is properly withered now.
Yeah.
She has desiccated to the point of being like this gray-skinned, shriveled, unconscious mess. Damon rouses her with a bottle of blood and feeds her enough to revive her. And then he tells her, hey, I brought you some things. Some fresh clothes, bit of blood.
That's nice.
Catherine is still not looking great. She's still weak and grimy, but she's at least looking like a human body.
Is she still in her masquerade dress?
She's still in the same dress.
Also, it's gotta have been at
her
least...
hair has been straight this entire time since the masquerade.
It
Like,
didn't
hasn't-
regain the wave?
It didn't regain the wave. So I'm like, either it's because she hasn't been able to wet it and wash herself yet, or maybe her hair is not naturally that wavy. I don't know.
She was straightening it back to straight from wavy. That's so crazy. Actually, I'm trying to think now. In 1864,
It's wavy in 1864. It's wavy in 1492. It seems to be its natural state. I don't know why.
she chemically straightened it.
Maybe she can't be, because we see her using a flat iron when she's with
Yeah.
Lucy in Masquerade, and it stayed that way for weeks. And I'm like, how long would a flat iron last if you
We
were
were
stuck
seeing
in a
the
tomb,
last step
not
in the
showering?
process. She's done some extra stuff before that, I'm sure.
But anyway, Catherine asks what Damon wants, and Damon's like, hey, John Gilbert's back in town, and Catherine's like, really? News to me.
Lovely.
Okay. And Damon's like, yeah, John says he's here to protect Elena from the originals. He's given me this dagger that is apparently able to kill them. I just want to know if it's true. And Catherine's like, well, if it was, I wouldn't tell you, Damon. And Damon's like, well, why? Since you want Elijah and Klaus dead as much as I do. And then Catherine's like, well, I want Klaus dead, but not Elijah. Because you see, if Elijah dies while I'm still under his compulsion, then I'm trapped here forever. You need to keep him alive long enough to let me out of here, and then you can do whatever you want. And Damon's like, lol, sucks to be you. I'm gonna kill this man. And Catherine's like, well, Damon, I'm just warning you, killing Elijah would be a suicide mission. I assume that how she meant him to understand that was attempting to kill Elijah would be a suicide mission because you will fail and he'll murder you. But I like the way she chose to phrase it because it ends up being a foreshadowing for what she has planned. So Catherine puts on her acting chops again because she's like, you can't kill Elijah. And Damon's like, well, I can. And she's like, no, you can't. And then Damon's like, I have the dagger and the white oak ash. And then she's like, oh my gosh. Oh no, her face falls. She looks stunned. She's like, oh no, wait, Damon, no. Please don't leave me in here forever. Look, I'll help you. If you wait and let me out of here, I will help you get rid of Elijah and anybody else. I'll do anything you want. And Damon's like, girl, bye.
He's so easy to play. It's hilarious. Comical.
It's so funny that he even assumes that he has gotten a reaction out of her that she's trying to hide.
Right.
Because Damon's like, I had my doubts about whether this would work, but you looking so scared has
Makes me
confirmed
think
that John
this
is
is
telling the truth.
genuine, yeah.
And Catherine's like, I haven't admitted anything. And he's like, no, you've confirmed that it's possible to kill an original since you've begged me not to do so. So I'm going to go kill Elijah. Bye.
God.
Elijah is ultimately daggered and killed, in a sense. At the end of the episode, Damon goes up to his room and hears the shower water running in his ensuite bathroom. He assumes it must be Andy Starr, his compelled pretend girlfriend, but is surprised because he thought she'd have gone home by now. He enters the bathroom and his devilish smirk turns into a look of utter astonishment as he sees that it's not Andy. And this scene, true to CW form, the music in this scene is so on the nose, like intentionally so, because the song that starts to play as the camera pans to the person Damon is gawping at is called Happiness is Overrated. It's by a rock band called The Airborne Toxic Event.
Oh, I
Quite a name.
love the Airborne
But-
Toxic Event. They have a song that's one of my favorite songs ever. It's called Sometime Around Midnight. Listener, if you get a chance, go find that song. It's so good.
The opening lines of their song Happiness is Overrated, which play as the camera pans, are, and speaking of Little Miss Catherine.
Okay, well.
And then we see Catherine. She's in the
man.
shower. She's like, hey, Damon, do you have a robe?
So casual.
And
so
Damon's
cool.
like, wait, how did you get out? And Catherine's like, oh, sweetie, I knew that if I begged you not to kill Elijah, that's exactly what you do. Little known fact, originals can compel vampires, but as soon as they die, the compulsion wears off.
Ooh, little known fact, your brain is smoother than a baby's bum, and every time I need to, I use that to my advantage. So
I'm just like, I love that she hustled him.
levels.
I'm gonna tell him not to do the thing I want him to do and look as though I really, really, really am terrified because I know how much he hates me and that will encourage him to do it even more.
Right. Reverse psychology. So good. Oh, it reminds me of that, there's a scene in the first Thor movie, where Loki gets Thor to go pick a fight with the Jotun.
Ah, yes.
In Jotunheim. But it's some of the best, like, Loki. It's the encapsulation of Loki in a moment before you know what the character is supposed to be. I guess if you know nothing about Norse mythology, where he is playing this, like, meek younger brother who's trying to keep his older brother from, like, spinning off the handle and angering their father, but is actively planting the idea in Thor's head to go pick a fight for, like, honor or glory or whatever. It's so good. Just a little reverse psychology.
He's even like, no. Like, I think
He's
Loki
like,
pretends
no,
that there's something slipped in that
don't
scene.
do that.
And he's like, oh, no, don't do that thing that deep down I really want you to do.
That's so good. Oh, that's a fun. What do they call it? Crack universe. Loki and Katherine in one room would be freaking crazy.
However, to our surprise, because Damon's like, you knew that us daggering Elijah would free you. And Catherine's like, yep, and I'm still here in Mystic Falls.
Yeah.
I didn't run. I meant what I said, Damon. I'm going to help you. The next episode is called The House Guest, very accurately named, because Katherine has just invited herself to live at Chez Salvatore.
Oh, the opening scene is
Oh,
so...
yes. we get Elena coming into Stefan's room, pulling on a shirt, and she's like, we're going to be late for school. And Stefan's like, no, let's canoodle and kiss. And Elena's like, okay, fine. 5 minutes. They fall into bed. Downstairs, Damon is having a drink and reading. And then Elena walks into the room and bids him good morning. And Damon's like, And then he's like, wait, something's not right. And he vamp speeds at her and throws up against the wall. And he's like, what are you doing here? I told you to leave. And then Elena is like, what's your problem? And then he's like, oh, wearing her clothes, like that's gonna work. And then Elena's like, you think I'm Katherine? And then Damon's expression softens and it's like his conviction falters a bit. And Elena's like, why would you think that? Katherine's in the tomb, isn't she? So then Damon lets her go. Then Stefan comes rushing downstairs, clearly having heard the commotion. He sees Damon and Elena, despite having just left another Elena upstairs in his room. Elena, who is in front of them, looks back and forth between both brothers. Stefan's like, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know, you tell me. Is Katherine in the tomb or not? So then Stefan, horrified, runs back upstairs. Back in his room, Elena's pulling on her sweater, looking in the mirror. Stefan vamp speeds into the room and throws her against the wall. And Elena's like, what are you doing? And Stefan chokes her and he's like, how could you do this? And Elena's like, Stefan, you're hurting me. And Stefan shouts, stop it, Katherine. And he like slams her head against the wall, making her cry out in pain. And then from behind him, there's this coy voice going, stop what? And then he turns to see the Elena from downstairs standing in the doorway with this satisfied smirk on her face. And it becomes clear that in this one instance, Damon's instincts were correct. The one he attacked was Katherine. The girl who's been upstairs is actually Elena.
But even in that sense, right, she still managed to fool him on top of that. He instinctually was like, that must be Katherine. She went, no, I'm Elena, why would you ever? And he immediately folded. And Stefan
It's
comes
so
down.
twisted.
Trust that Damon has correctly assessed and runs upstairs to be like, I was wrong. Oh no. It's so bad for all of them.
Because we've already seen Katherine trick like Damon, Elena, and John.
Several times.
And by extension, all of us. And we've seen her trick Stefan several episodes ago. But now she has managed to goad Stefan into a violent reaction against his own girlfriend because he was tricked the opposite way into believing Elena was Katherine. It's like,
God, she's so good.
unless you are really concentrating on like the subtlest acting clues from Nina's performance, you're now at a stage where you're like, is it Elena? Is it Katherine? Is it Katherine pretending to be Elena so that the real Elena appears to be Katherine? When does the switch take place? When it happens?
God, Katherine.
And Katherine's just like,
why didn't...
it's getting really easy being you.
Right? Why did no one tell everyone? Who didn't know that Katherine was now just living here? How did this occur? It's what I need
I
to
think
know.
Damon knew. I don't think that he had told anyone else.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm
I
assuming
was
this
like,
is
I
like the
know
next
that it's
day.
Damon who knows. Why don't the others know? Again, why is Damon concealing information? We need to know we live here.
A sin that everyone in this group commits against somebody else in this group. So,
Right.
I
and
mean,
it's like, did she
looking at
take
Jenna.
Elena's... Exactly. Did she take Elena's necklace? Did she have the necklace on at that time? I'm like, what would the... if people
not in
knew-
this scene.
Right.
It is something that she'll do later.
Right. Like, people need to have identifying factors. We're in the house with her, guys. What's going on?
So later on, they're all downstairs, the doppelgangers and the Salvatores. And then it's like, what's she doing here? Damon's like, well, when we killed Elijah, it broke the compulsion and freed the bitch from the tomb.
Why don't they already know this, Damon? That was last night. You couldn't send a quick message? Where's the Mystic Falls gang group chat? Is what I want to know.
Gosh.
I guess they don't have WhatsApp in America.
I mean, they probably all had iPhones or something at this stage. I'm not sure. Blackberries.
Yeah, Blackberries were around,
2010.
certainly. They're always promoting some phone on this show, so why didn't they use the group chat feature?
Elena really doesn't want Katherine around, but Katherine insists that they all need her because she's the one who is their best chance at beating Klaus. She's like, you're all running around like chickens with your heads cut off.
My favorite expression, because I love that chickens can just do that. It's so wild.
She makes her point by saying, do you guys know where Klaus is? Or when he's coming? Or even what he looks like? Mm-hmm. Which, at this point, we the audience also have never seen Klaus's face. So she raises a good point. Later on, Stefan and Elena go to school, and Elena's like, oh, why would Katherine stick around after being freed from the tomb? And Stefan's just like, well, I guess maybe she really wants to help, or we should at least try to figure out what her angle is.
Exactly.
If nothing else. And Elena's like, yeah, I don't really like the idea of her like staying over at your house. And I'm like, Elena, come now. I don't like this side of you.
She's concerned about what Katherine is going to do. She's not concerned about her loving partner, boyfriend.
That's fair. We've seen what Katherine does.
Uh-huh.
But back at the Salvatore house, Damon is in the basement with Elijah's corpse. He's trying to get the dagger back because they're like, well, we can use the dagger on Klaus when he shows up. But if we pull it out of Elijah, he'll regenerate. So maybe if I burn him with a flamethrower, I can pick the dagger from his ashes.
Hey.
Katherine walks in and she's like, if you're trying to get the dagger back, you're wasting your time. Because even in this like state of death, Elijah is indestructible. Damon's like, how do you know so much about original vampires? And Katherine says, well, I spent 500 years running from one. So then Damon's like, okay, how come when I told you I was gonna kill Elijah with the silver dagger, you didn't warn me the dagger would kill any vampire that used it on an original? And Catherine's like, oh my, there are so many rules that it just gets a bit confusing.
It's hard to keep track of all this supernatural bullshit. I don't have a Bennett at my side right now. Listen.
And Damon's like, nah. Did you know I would die? Catherine's like, changing subject. Did Elijah tell you what his plan was to kill Klaus? Did he have a dagger to use on Klaus or something? And then Damon's like, okay, seriously, why are you still here? Catherine's like, oh, it's because you haven't forcibly removed me. And then Damon points the flamethrower at her.
That's funny.
And she's like, oh, you wouldn't. And Damon moves like close and he's like, oh, I would. And suddenly she looks a bit afraid. And she's like, Damon, wait.
Let's
remember,
think.
I want Klaus dead as much as you, if not more. I'm being honest about helping. Otherwise, I'd be long gone. And she reiterates. It becomes like her arc words throughout these next few episodes. She's like, we all want the same thing. We want Klaus dead. I want Klaus dead more than all of you. She says, you can hate me, but we want the same thing. And you know I always get what I want.
That's the same shit Damon's always saying too. Again, everything he got from her.
As Katherine is about to leave, though, she's like, oh, by the way, I wanted out of the tomb. It didn't matter who paid the price. Of course I knew that you'd die. And it's like, ouch! Well, you asked,
She
Damon.
doesn't need to say that, but she's giving him an answer. Katherine.
Later on, she's in the living room with Damon. They're rifling through some journals, trying to find out where the site of the witch massacre was, because that's part of the plot. Damon still doesn't trust her and doesn't want to give her any more info. He's being very cold as well because of what she's just told him. At one point, he attacks her and like flings her onto this piano stool. And she's like, hey, if it's any consolation, I'm glad you're not dead. But she then reveals that she actually does know something about the witch massacre because Emily Bennett told her about it. Apparently, it was a big deal in witch folklore. Stefan shows up. He's been in a meeting with the Martin Warlocks, Jonas and Luca. And he's like, oh, Catherine's still here. Why is she not gone or dead? Catherine's like, for the 15th time, I'm here to help.
Smart to be wary, though, I have to say. It's good that they're all going, what's going on? Who invited her? What is she looking for? It's good to keep on your toes.
Keep on acting wary, but then sometimes sometimes they'll reveal key details like right in front of her. Like in this scene, Stefan's like, cool. Well, it turns out Elijah wanted to channel the power of all these witches and use that power to kill Klaus. We just need to find out where it is. And I'm like, okay, well, so much for not trusting her.
True.
Speaking of the Martin Warlocks, Jonas and his son Luca are desperate to get their daughter/sister Greta back because she's apparently being forced to work for Klaus. This will later prove to be untrue. They still believe Elijah is their best bet. That's who they've been working with, but he's currently daggered. So Jonas, who is stronger than Luca and is therefore the only one who can perform the spell, does an incantation to project Luca's spirit into the Salvatore house in astral form. A form that is invisible and apparently unable to be heard, but can still interact with the physical, which was an interesting one.
I mean, that's not unheard of in astral projection.
Not unheard of. I just find it interesting that, because usually what you'd see is like someone in a ghostly form but you can see but not touch, like Trans from X-Men.
Sure.
As opposed to someone that you can touch but not see.
Yeah. I mean, think of ghosts, right?
Yeah.
And like specters and poltergeists and shit. You can't see them, but they can throw shit around.
And boy, does he.
Right.
Apparently they didn't know where Elijah's body was. The spell would just send them to wherever he was. So he's like, oh, I'm in the Salvatore house. That's interesting. I see Damon and Elena reading some books. It's not Elena, it's Katherine, but he doesn't know that. Katherine gets bored and she decides to irritate Damon by reading the book that he's holding like out aloud over his shoulder. Damon is like, by the way, how did the town council capture Emily and kill her at the site of the Old Witch Massacre? Because John Gilbert is the only one who knew she was a witch and apparently he wasn't going to tell. And then Katherine's like, well, you know. And Damon's like, right, you sold her out, didn't you?
So crazy. That's another floating correction from ages ago I'd like to make, because I thought John Gilbert at some point was the one who sold her out. So apologies, Johnny G. I didn't know your game.
I mean, this is just Damon assuming John wouldn't have done that. I'm like, John Gilbert wasn't the nicest guy.
Certainly not.
But yeah, Katherine says Emily was a loose end and she likes hers tied up. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Katherine says she's bored and hungry, and Damon's like, okay, you're the unwanted house guest, roll credits, so go feed yourself. Katherine goes down to the cellar to get some blood from the Salvatore stash. When Luca first appeared in the living room, Damon seemed to sense something, but then turned his way and was like, I don't see anything, whatever.
Yeah.
Once again, when Katherine is in the cellar, she also seems to feel some sort of presence, but she's like, okay, I don't see anything, cool, gets her blood, turns to go. Luca, unseen by her, is like kneeling by Elijah's daggered body. For some reason, he doesn't wait until she's completely
I don't know
gone
why he
before
didn't
he starts
wait.
trying to yank the dagger out.
Maybe there was a time limit to how long he could be projected. That's the only explanation, as to like, you couldn't wait until she was around the corner, my guy.
Perhaps. Katherine's vamp ears, I guess, pick up on the dagger coming out, and she immediately rushes to put it back in. I guess the 2 centimeters Luca had managed to remove it, being pushed back in, don't count as a vampire using the dagger, otherwise Katherine would be dead.
Maybe she had her hands. Do you remember if she was holding the dagger at all, or did she have her hands around his hands?
She had her hands on it because remember, she couldn't see him.
Oh, that's too close
all
for
she
comfort,
saw was the dagger
girl.
like telekinetically removing itself.
That's too
from
close.
Elijah. I'll let it slide. It wasn't completely.
Yeah, as long
Maybe
as it's
some
not
of it was
completely
still in
removed.
his
That's
heart.
exactly what I was thinking
Yeah.
also.
Luca is startled. His physical body, which is back with his father and can still communicate with him, is like, oh, Elena is fighting me. And then he realizes that, now hold on, why am I not able to overpower this teenage girl who's my age?
I know I'm like 5'5", but I'm built strong. Like, this girl should not be able to feel stronger than me. I've seen her arms.
Although Nina Dobrev, athletic, so...
You know, it's all about torque.
But he tells his dad Elena is stronger than him, and his father instantly realizes that it's actually Katherine. He's like, no, that's Katherine Pierce, a vampire. You need to kill her. Take a stake and drive it through her heart.
Yeah.
So Luca lets go of the dagger and goes to find a piece of wood. Katherine, seeing that this unseen force has stopped moving the dagger, is like, okay, cool. So it's over now, and she lets go and looks around. Suddenly a chair smashes behind her. It's Luca, but she can't see. And then Katherine is like, Damon! Luca stakes Katherine in the stomach with this makeshift stake. Damon comes into the room and sees Katherine like on the floor. And now he sees this dagger about to come out of Elijah.
The haunting of Shea Salvatore. My goodness.
He grabs the flamethrower he had earlier and fires it at the air around Elijah's body. It's horrific. Apparently, the astral projection works in such a way that those flames cause Luca's physical body to suddenly catch fire, and he dies very quickly despite his father's efforts to save him.
Yeah, you often see when astral projection is described that like your physical body is at risk because you are like too far away from it, so you can't protect yourself. It's interesting to see it happen the opposite way, where it's like your tether to your physical body means that you are vulnerable as an astral form. If something happens to you, it'll happen to you. You die in the game, you die for real. It's pretty crazy.
Stefan comes into the room and he's like, what's going on? And Damon's like, it's some sort of psychic witch attack. Go find the Martins and deal with it. Unfortunately, Luca is very dead.
Yeah.
And Jonas is like, okay, vengeance time. Going after Elena. He seems a bit murderous, but his actual plan is just to capture her and use her in the sacrifice.
Yeah.
So that he and Elijah can go with their original plan to kill Klaus. So he goes to the Mystic Grill where Elena and all the other characters are. Back at Chez Salvatore, after the witch attack, Damon gives Katherine a blood bag to help her recover. As she's about to drink from it, he then stakes her in the stomach. And she's like, what the hell? And he says, that's for not telling me the dagger would kill me.
All right, fair enough.
And he drives the stake in deeper and tells her that next time it'll go in her heart.
You gotta take your kicks when you can, because you know any other situation.
Damon then says he's gonna go leave because I think Stefan, who had reached the Martin household before Jonas left, has already called and warned him that Jonas is on his way to find Elena. And so he's like, I'm gonna go save Elena. And Catherine's like, wait, I wanna help. And Damon's like, ew, no, I don't need or want your help. Catherine's like, no, Damon, wait, I have a plan. Like, let me do this. Also, in this scene, Katherine has to hurt Damon one last time before they leave. She tells him that the reason that John Gilbert was willing to work with the Salvatore brothers at all, even though he's always been like, I want these vampires out of my daughter's life, is because he promised Katherine that he would let her keep one of them. And she was like, I bet. Guess it's Stefan then.
You
You
know
can trick
it's
Damon into killing himself to kill Elijah.
Oh, I love it.
And Damon's like, you chose Stefan. Of course you did. And Catherine's like, you wanted the truth, Damon. Would you rather I lie?
Nasty girl.
But meanwhile, Jonas attacks the grill where Elena and everybody else are. Stefan has already called Elena to warn her that Jonas is coming. And so when they run into him, which looking back, I'm like, Elena makes her presence known. It seems like she's just talking to him, and I'm like, oh no, you wanted to be seen.
Yeah.
It was all part of this plan. Because Stefan does tell Elena, we have a plan. Caroline distracts him and Stefan and Elena manage to get away, but he then leaves and goes after them. At the end of the night, Bonnie and Jeremy are now at the Gilbert house. It seems like they've just arrived back from the grill. Stefan and Elena then come in the front door, and Bonnie's like, oh, Elena, you're safe. And Elena's like, yeah, it's not over yet, though. Stefan will tell you what's going on. I'm gonna head upstairs. Stefan asks Bonnie and Jeremy, how long have they been home? And they're like, no, we just arrived. And he's like, did you check the house for intruders? Upstairs, Elena walks into the bathroom and is ambushed by Jonas, who was already in the house. Surprise! He pushes her into the room, but she stops in the doorway and suddenly flashes vampire eyes at him. Surprise times 2, it's Katherine! She attacks Jonas, biting his throat and feeding off him until he collapses. Bonnie and Stefan then come in, and they see Katherine standing over Jonas's lifeless form, and she's like, you're welcome! So it seems that Katherine's aforementioned plan was to finally use her Elena impersonation skills
To actually
the
help
gang's advantage.
It's like, God, is your likeness useful when you're actually trying to help these people? And this is the moment, right? Because as you say, from the moment she's shown up, everyone's been wary and suspicious. And this is where she proves, guys, I am on your side. I put my actual life on the line to protect Elena. So you should believe me when I say I'm in this for the long haul. And that in itself is, well, we'll get to it.
She's also wearing Elena's necklace in this scene for the first
Right.
time, really duping the audience. And I want to say that Katherine, since she got out of the tomb, has just been rocking straight hair. And I really think it's because they wanted to do the switch in this episode, because going forward, her hair goes back to being wavy.
They're
All of a
like, as soon
sudden.
as she got out of the tomb, she was like, back to the straightener, bitch. Gotta blend in plain sight.
Bonnie's all sad because she's like, oh no, another Martin Warlock casualty. And she's
Right.
like, Katherine, you didn't have to kill him. And Katherine's like, yes, I did. But Jonas is not quite dead. He has one last jump scare lunge at at Bonnie,
Yeah.
holding her head in his hands and saying an incantation. Bonnie screams for them to get him off her, and then Stefan snaps Jonas's neck. So now he's proper dead. Catherine even nudges him with her foot to make sure he's dead.
But so I hate that. I understand he was an antagonist in that episode. Nah, screw that. Especially with your history, Catherine and Black Witches. Get out. Get out of here.
Elena wants to know how they convinced Catherine to help, and Damon's like, well, we didn't. This was actually Catherine's plan. And it's like, oh.
Interesting. Okay.
Sabrina Breyer. Oh. In this scene, though, Catherine has the audacity to be annoyed that Elena doesn't say thank you. Elena's just like, yeah, she needs to leave before Jenna comes back. And Catherine's like, is that all you have to say to me? And I'm like, okay, Catherine, just dial it back a bit. You did one thing.
Yeah, I guess she's still Catherine at the end of the day, you know? What are you gonna do?
And Elena tells her it doesn't change the way that she feels about her. Catherine is like, I don't much like you either if we're gonna be open. And frankly, I'd be happy to see you dead. But if we're gonna take on Klaus, I kind of need you to be alive. So I am not a threat to you, Elena. And I was like, okay, Catherine.
Okay, begrudging alliance.
If you say so. At the end of that night, Catherine shows up in Damon's bedroom. Again, her hair is now back to its signature wavy style. Oh, it's actually in this scene where she admits that she did sell Emily out.
Nice.
She tries to be a bit flirty with Damon. He seems to be reciprocating and he's like, Catherine, there are 6 other bedrooms in this house. And then he flings her to the side and he's like, go find one.
Good for him.
And she looks a bit annoyed and is like, oh, my wiles aren't working on Damon anymore.
I'd be disappointed too. It's like, I usually have an easy fix in getting a rise on a Damon. Where am I supposed to find my fun now? You know? Shame.
Yep. In the next episode, Know Thy Enemy. Shouldn't it be Thine Enemy? But whatever, that's what it's called.
That's, you know.
Isabel is back in town, and she's even less popular than Uncle John.
Bless.
After a failed attempt at earning Elena's trust, she goes to whatever fancy manor she has compelled her way into this time.
I like to think it's the same one where she had that gay rodeo cowboy and the exotic dancer. Just kind of hanging out, you know?
Maybe. But Catherine comes in. It briefly looks like they're going to have a scuffle because she senses Catherine behind her and attacks her. Then Catherine gets the upper hand because she's older. Then they giggle and they're like, lol, girl, missed you. And they hug like besties.
It's a redux of the scene with Lucy Bennett, right?
But it's like, as we learn in this instance, it doesn't seem to be like coercion or forced like debt. It's like, no, these two are apparently
Isabel.
friends.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. In terms of Isabel and Elena, right? Catherine looking at her progeny, Isabel is exactly what she wants. Isabel is like in her mold. Like, of course, that's the one she's going to gravitate towards.
Yeah, and given what we learn about Catherine later, I wonder how much of her fondness for Isabel is that like, oh, I was never able to find my descendants. Eventually, one of them tracked me down, or we tracked each other down, and I was like, oh, an actual blood family member. I've been running for so long, I haven't really had time to like set down roots and meet anyone. It's nice to see you, and nice that you're interesting, because you're evil too.
Exactly.
And I like that.
It's like, you're not a disappointment to me, like my doppelganger. Like, this is kind of fun, actually. We can kiki.
But yeah, they share a bottle of... It's a wine bottle filled with human blood that Isabel said she got from a vintner. So she...
Like a human vintner? That's crazy.
I like to think she found a winemaker, emptied his bottle out, then killed him and drained his blood into the bottle.
Oh, I see. What I meant was someone who's running like a blood farm and is like pulling blood. I went to a crazy place, my bad. But it's also because I was thinking of True Blood, but there it's synthetic. That's the thing that like shifts the relations of humans and vampires in that world, is that they crack synthetic blood, and so vampires are able to come out of the coffin, as they say in the show, which is fun. And it's like, well, it's now that we have synthetic blood, there's no reason that vampires can't live amongst human society and not attack anybody. And then it's like, well, there's levels. And that's the show.
Catherine is like, hey, Isabel, heard you at the Gilbert house this morning. What was that about? And Isabel's like, I was just being petty because my ex-husband has a new girlfriend. She calls her Auntie Vanilla, and I'm like, you leave Jenna alone.
Stay out of this. Catherine, stop your nonsense.
No, it's Isabel. Isabel's like, I found out.
Isabel says Auntie Vanilla? God damn. She's got the man and you don't, so I guess she's winning with her vanilla self.
Catherine is like, oh, so John invited you into the Gilbert house.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You must have him wrapped around your finger. And Isabel is like, oh, girl, yes. John thinks I'm helping him protect Elena. Psh, as if. So he's been telling me everything that's been going on. Catherine's like, okay, cool. Tell me what you know. And Isabel says, all right, so I couldn't get a hold of Klaus because he's elusive and the writers are saving him for a big reveal.
Of course.
But I did get in touch with one of his witches. And apparently, Klaus is willing to grant you your freedom if you deliver the Moonstone and Elena. Catherine's like, yeah, I can get the Moonstone. And Isabel's like, are you sure you'll be betraying your Salvatore boy toys? And what she says here surprises me. This is what Catherine claims. She says, I was more than willing to play it their way if I had to. But now that team is floundering and Bonnie has no powers and they've used their only weapon to kill Elijah. If I stick with them, I'm dead.
I believe that.
So-
I believe that of Catherine because she seems surprised to find Isabel and to learn all this new information. Like similarly again with that moment back in 1498 where it's like, I make a plan, I receive new information, I adjust the plan in that moment. Is a thing she does sometimes when she's like, okay, let's do the calculus. This whole family loves doing calculus. That's the thing. They love doing the maths and seeing what is my best option here. Or at least what is the option that is most suited to my needs. For Elena, that means how do I save as many people as possible of my loved ones? For Catherine, it is what is my best chance of saving myself? So it's fun.
Yeah, it's true. She's playing all sides. Well, I would say she's playing all sides, but the only side she's ever really on is her own.
Yeah.
So later on, Elena and the Salvatores are like, how are we going to keep you safe? We'll just keep you in our sight all day, every day. And then Elena's like, fine, I'm going to a Lockwood luncheon. Damon is like, well, I can't go with you to the town event because I'm helping Bonnie. And then Elena's like, oh, you're helping Bonnie with the... And then Damon cuts her off with a because Catherine walks in. And Catherine's like, oh no, come on, don't leave me out of the loop.
She's just come from saying, I will readily betray them. And she's like, guys, you can't leave critical information out from me.
Truly. Has just come from betraying them in the other scene. And then she's like, don't all keep quiet on my account. She's like, I delivered you a moonstone, a werewolf, and a dagger to lure and kill Klaus. And now all you have is a moonstone.
Let's not forget, I just saved Elena, so I don't know what's the problem here.
And she says, all you have now is the moonstone, or so you tell me. Which I'm like, sneaky Catherine, planting the seed. And Damon's like, yes, we have it. And Catherine's like, okay, cool, where is it? And Damon's like, it's
Don't
safe.
worry.
Catherine says, oh, come on, I've been honest with you. It's time to return the favor. And Damon says, let me be honest with you. Don't mistake the fact that we haven't set you on fire in your sleep for trust. So Catherine pouts, fine, be that way, and walks off. Later on, Stefan and Elena have left for the Lockwood thing, and Damon has gone to do witch business with Bonnie and Jeremy. Catherine now rummages through the Salvatore house in search of the Moonstone.
Yep.
She seems to mainly be in Damon's room, because she looks through his closet, his drawers. She opens a little chest and rifles through what look like cigars? I didn't know Damon ever smoked.
I mean, some men of his, like, stature and type, like, sometimes just keep them.
The Cuban
you know,
cigar.
as a status symbol. He likes his bourbon and his cigars, and it's like, I've never seen you smoke one time. Maybe it's their dads, I don't know.
Oh, we do know that Giuseppe smoked cigars. We learned that later. Oh.
Ugh.
Catherine finds a wad of cash as she's looking through, and she just, like, casually slips it into her bra.
Love. She's like, I'm not gonna waste money.
It's such a random moment of shadiness and pettiness and badness. And I'm just like, you're
You
so
could get
calm.
money
Why are you stealing from
anywhere.
Damon? You don't need money. You can mind control and physically overpower people.
She's just like, for a rainy day, you never know. It's so fun.
Love her.
It's also just, it's just petty to Damon, right? It's just like, just take some money from him. Who cares?
Eventually, she ends up searching the fireplace, like up the chimney and in the ashes, and after dirting her hands, she goes to the ensuite bathroom to wash her hands. And she uses a bar of soap. And when she returns it to the soap dish and goes to dry her hands, she's like, wait a minute, what was that? Damon has stupidly hidden the Moonstone, which admittedly does look a lot like a bar of soap.
That's what I was gonna
But
say.
he has
I
stupidly
see the logic in his mind where he went, someone could mistake this for soap. Not someone who has had this thing for 150 years, David. What are you talking about? Put it
She's
in
had
a
it for longer
safe.
because she had it from the time she fled the originals until 1864 when she gave it to George Lockwood.
She had it for 300 plus years, and you think she's gonna mistake it for a bar of soap? Come on, my guy.
But yep, she finds the moonstone in the soap dish. For once, she succeeds not due to her own evil genius, but just
Through the
because
stupidity
Damon's
of others.
Meanwhile, Isabel is up to no good. She distracts Alaric long enough to get him kidnapped, and then she goes to the Lockwood house to create a diversion by temporarily killing John, who's wearing his Gilbert ring. She flings his corpse downstairs so that Katherine can switch places with Elena while everyone is focused on that commotion.
Brilliant. It's like the magician's gambit, the distraction, and then the switch. It's so, these two together are dangerous.
So Katherine switches outfits with Elena. Isabel kidnaps her now unconscious daughter. Stefan is among those people who like run to see if John's okay, but he soon leaves because Sheriff Forbes is there and he's like, okay, let me go check on Elena. He sees Katherine posing as her, complete with the necklace, and she's on the phone talking to Damon. And Stefan's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm just calling Damon because he needs to come here and like sort out the John thing once they're outside, because Stefan like leads her out at that point, probably being like, oh, it's not safe in here, let's go. Once they're outside, Katherine is still talking to Damon, and she's like, Isabel must have been the one who attacked John. Stefan seems to have been fooled into thinking Katherine is Elena, because he's like, well, tell Damon to get here so that we can sort out the John body situation. Katherine finishes talking to Damon, hangs up. As soon as she does, Stefan throws her against the car.
There you go.
And grabs her, and is like, where is Elena?
Always Stefan. It will always be Stefan.
And I like to think he wasn't fooled for 1 second.
For
I
a
like to think
second,
he
no.
saw her inside, clocked it was Catherine, was like, okay, let me get her out of here.
We are
so that the
surrounded
townsfolk
by
don't see me
people.
attacking my girlfriend.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good man.
Unfortunately, Catherine vervains him with a syringe, and she's like, I'm sorry, Steph, can't have you following me. And she tosses him into some bushes and then drives away. She shows up at Isabel's house and calls Isabel to be like, hey girl, I'm here. We gotta hurry though, because Damon knows that you like to like compel your way into very expensive places whenever you're staying in town. It won't take him long to figure out this is where you are. On the other end of the line, Isabel's like, no, don't worry, we'll be long gone before that happens. And Catherine's like, excellent, good, cool. So how far are you? And then Isabel's like, sorry, Catherine.
Sorry,
I had to do what I was told. He wanted the moonstone and he wanted you. And Catherine, another one of those rare moments when she's gagged.
Blindsided.
She's like, he who? And Isabel hangs up without answering.
And who else but, again, her own progeny, the person she treasured because they were so like her, is the one to fool her entirely and sell her out. Granted, she was being coerced, but who else could have managed it?
Yeah, Catherine turns around and sees a man standing there. She tries to attack him at vamp speed, but he does the aneurysm spell on her, revealing that he's a witch.
The White Witch Maddox.
Our first white witch.
Our first White Witch.
Unlike Bonnie's earlier attempt this season, he's strong enough that he's actually able to knock her out with the aneurysm spell. At the end of this episode, John comes with his tail between his legs to speak to Elena at Chez Salvatore. She's been released by Isabel. Isabel has unalived herself in the sun.
You don't have to censor yourself for the podcast. It's just unalive does not seem to be part of your vocab.
I've been on the internet too long lately, and now
it's not.
the word
We're
that
not
pops
going to
into my
lose
head
monetize.
first.
We don't have any monetization to lose.
She suicides herself and bursts into glorious flame at the gravestone that is on top of her empty grave. It's very poetic.
She does immolate in the sun. Yeah, it's rough.
John is like, yeah, I always knew Catherine and Isabel were close, but I never realized they were working against me. And I'm like, John, that was honestly stupid of you. Because, like, didn't Catherine stab you and cut off your fingers at the beginning of this season and, like, leave you for dead?
Opening scene of you meeting Catherine was her removing your hand so she could better kill you so you couldn't come back.
Yeah, I'm like, at what point did you decide you trusted her?
Well, like you said, love entered the situation, and that made him wildly
Yeah.
illogical.
Because, as we know, Isabel is his blind spot.
Yeah.
But I love that in this scene, John says of Isabel and Catherine, two of the world's most selfish and uncaring vampires, and yet they were genuinely friends.
That's cute.
Yeah, good for them. I love
Good
to see
for
villains
them.
getting along.
Yeah.
The beach is one of my favorite episodes of Avatar: The Lost Airbender.
It's nice to see the villains have a little downtime, you know? They're people too. They have hobbies. They have interests. It's a shame that they went out like that, because Isabel truly didn't do that on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
She got too close to
feel like
Klaus.
she would have sold Catherine out.
Yeah, that's rough.
In the final scene of this episode, Catherine awakens to find herself in Alaric's apartment. Maddox does the spell to put Klaus into Alaric's unconscious body. When Klaus Alaric awakens...
We can't. I'm gonna cut it out there. You've got to pick one. Rarely do I like to give notes. You've got to pick one. I can't. For my sake.
Catherine is like, first she tries to vamp speed out. However, it seems that she's been spelled into this house because she can't cross the threshold.
Yeah, similar to the tomb.
And then she turns back, and then Klaus greets her in Bulgarian and says, Zdrave, Katerina.
Okay. All right.
And she's just like, Klaus.
I mean, at this time, we were potentially working with like a European family of original vampires. So it would make sense. Well, not to suggest that Klaus, being from Scandinavia, precludes him from learning new languages, but it would make sense that it's like, oh, he also speaks a similar language.
Yeah. The next episode, oh, it's fun. We see Klaus as Alaric rehearsing his Spark Notes summary that he's forced Catherine to give him about all the latest developments with the Mystic Falls gang. She's very jumpy and afraid, and he's like, oh, you're so terrified of me. What's going on? And Catherine's like, girl, just kill me.
Right.
I've told you everything I know.
This is the person she's been running from for centuries, and he's now caught up to her. Bless.
Like, she's truly given up. She's like, look, I get it. I lost. Can we just get it over with now? I'm ready to meet my maker. And Klaus is like, well, you've told me everything you know, but what might you not know? What could this group be keeping from you? And he compels her, demonstrating that Klaus still has that ability, even in Rick's body. And Catherine admits that, okay, well, these Mystic Falls kids were like trying to see if Bonnie could find a way to kill an original without a dagger. And Klaus is like, you told me Bonnie had no magic. And Catherine's like, well, yes, the last time I tuned in, she didn't, but I'm out of the loop because you kidnapped me, remember?
Shot yourself in the foot there, Klaus.
She's like so hopeless in this moment, truly just in despair. She's just like, just kill me and be done with it. And then Klaus is like, and show you a kindness? Girl, no. And he tells her, I've searched for you for 500 years. And he promises her that her death will last at least half that long. He compels her to stab herself in the leg repeatedly with a knife all day while he is at school pretending to be Rick. And before he leaves, he says, if you get bored, you can switch legs.
Jesus. And this is the thing, right, that I was saying earlier of like the idea that this is deserved somehow for Catherine.
Wild.
From Klaus specifically, right? Because obviously Catherine has screwed over a lot of people. Klaus is the person who at the end of the day found this child, said, I'm gonna sacrifice you on the altar for my purposes and for my business. And she escaped him and he went, you bitch, I will find you and torture you for this betrayal. Absolute nonsense. This man is a monster. It's crazy. So this is just like further torture, further insult, further suffering at the hands of someone who wanted her dead 500 years ago for reasons beyond her existence. It sucks all around for Catherine in this.
I do feel sorry for her in this scene. But also I'm like, I'm not rooting for Klaus, and I am afraid for you, but also, you've done terrible things to people who truly cared about you, Catherine.
Yeah, monsters make
Mason
monsters,
is
I
dead.
suppose.
Trevor is dead. Pearl is dead.
I mean, listen, by anyone else's hand, different story. By this man, absolutely not.
I'm like, hey, the universe serves you your comeuppance in all sorts of ways. Maybe stabbing yourself in the leg for several hours is the least of what you deserve.
If the universe had any sense of comeuppance, Klaus would be far worse off than he is. Even in this instance when we first meet him.
Karma leaves the story somewhere in season 3 and she never comes back. I do like that in this episode at the Salvatore house, Damon and Stefan are discussing Bonnie's newfound witch power boost. And then Damon's like, so do you think Klaus killed Catherine? Because they know that he's taken her. And Stefan's like, probably. And Damon's like, well, it's not like she didn't have it coming. But they do seem a little somber at the idea of her being dead. And I'm like,
yeah.
guys,
I appreciate that. No, because it's like,
Guys.
obviously they are not obliged in any sense, because especially Stefan, who has suffered so much at her hands. But it is nice to be like, well, damn, we know she was running for that long. It kind of sucks. Even in a sense of like, because there's the empathetic aspect of it, which I'm trying to have for Katherine, but then there's also the sense of like, she was winning. It kind of sucks for her to like lose in the end, Just from a purely... From a pure numbers game, it's like, damn, to run so long and get snatched up in one go sucks.
Like Rose and Trevor.
Exactly.
There's when Klaus eventually does come home to Rick's place, we see Katherine still holding the knife in her hand. Her thigh is drenched in blood at this point, since she's been wounding and healing over and over again all day. It's grotesque. It's like,
That's
dang.
rough.
The next episode 19, is Klaus. A lot of episodes this season named after characters.
Yeah.
Elena has undaggered Elijah. This is the episode in which we get a lot of flashbacks to 1492 about when Katherine first got to England and met the originals. So we see that in 1492, Elijah held a birthday celebration for Klaus. Trevor, who is now being addressed by his old name Trefor.
Oh, well, now we know what order they shot in.
But he's like, oh, Elijah, I've got a present for Klaus. Elijah is introduced to Katherine and is stunned by her appearance. And he's like, oh, you remind me of someone. And I was like, that won't come up again until a little while later.
Oh, I love that they seeded that in there, though. They were preparing. That's good.
Yeah. He seems immediately taken with Katerina.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, look at you. Look at the power you had over these men so easily, Katherine. Although I will say, for Elijah, it was probably also like memories,
Yeah, true.
The Tatia of it all. In the present, Klaus sends Maddox to go and retrieve his true body, and he tells Katherine that he's planning to break the curse soon. Katherine is like, why would you do the ritual here in Mystic Falls where like all your enemies are? Like everyone here wants to stop you. Klaus is like, well, the sacrifice has to be performed in the birthplace of the doppelganger, so I kind of have to do it here. And Katherine says, oh, I didn't know that. And Klaus is like, well, yes, you betrayed me and fled England before we could get that far, so how would you have known? And it's like, Klaus!
Absolutely crazy.
How dare she want to survive?
How dare she look out for herself when you were trying to kill her? Wild. Again, Klaus is one of those, it's very simple, right? No one's real outside of me, so...
But he does, so cruel. He rubs some salt in the wound and reminds her that I did find your birthplace eventually, Katerina. And then I slaughtered your entire family. Let's just hope Elena isn't as stupid as you were.
Jesus.
Damn. See, this is the man I will remember when people are like, Caroline. Katherine is like, don't worry, Elena won't run. She loves her loved ones. She'll never let them come to harm. Klaus is like, cool, got some errands to run. I'm gonna compel you right here and now to be unable to leave Alaric's apartment until I tell you to. Meanwhile, through Elijah, we get some flashbacks. We see Katerina meeting Klaus for the first time when Elijah presents her to him.
They've both got long hair. It's not their best look. It really isn't.
Really isn't. It did make Joseph Morgan look more like a supervillain, though, because that's the first time we see him as Klaus.
You think the long hair makes him look more villainous? Interesting.
Something about that particular style for him, because it's like this combed back, longish hair. He's got this heavy brow. He just looks very, like, cartoonishly evil. Whereas when he shows up in the modern era, it's like, oh, he kind of sexy.
Nah, I think he looks villainous enough, even with the short hair. The hair doesn't really have an impact on it for me, strangely. I don't know.
He looked more camp in the evil sense. That's my go-to word now.
Sure. How the turns have tabled.
But it's in this scene that we see that Klaus greeting Katherine while he was possessing Alaric was a callback to when he first met her and he greeted her in her native Bulgarian, was like, Zdrave. And she's like, oh my gosh, very good. Excellent pronunciation. She's very giggly and she seems instantly taken with him.
Which is fascinating.
And as the flashbacks continue, we will see Katerina really was quite enamored by him. She has scenes with Elijah, who is crushing on her from his own side.
Yeah.
And seems a bit jealous of the claim that Klaus seems to have over her.
Well, yeah, that's the thing with that dynamic, is that Elijah meets her and they start like a thing going, and then like within hours Klaus sweeps in and snatches her up essentially, which is also why it's a little bit weird that Elijah also holds her as like having betrayed him in some way, where it's like, Elijah, I get you were into her, but she wasn't sworn to you. Like, what exactly did she do to you? Is he mad that she played them? Like, how?
I think it's kind of that, because Elijah never really allowed her to escape. I don't think. It's implied he might have said something that alerted her to what was really going on, but I don't think he outright told her. I think it was more her using Trevor, and then because Trevor was his thrall, he was then angry at Trevor for getting him in trouble with Klaus.
Sure.
And it was this whole thing.
Yeah, again, it's just like, I don't think Catherine is at fault in the situation, and y'all are all crazy.
Of course not.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're in a codependent relationship with your brother. Or subservient at this point, because that's the vibe, right? Which is weird to think back on. Like, beyond the final episode of the season, that relationship becomes completely different, even sort of retroactively.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But it is fun to see Katerina caught between two brothers again. Although this is technically the first time, chronologically.
Exactly. This is the original one. No pun intended.
But back in the present, Catherine is bored out of her mind, being stuck at Rick's apartment. Damon shows up with Andy Starr, who can come inside. Damon can't because he hasn't been invited in. But he gives her some vervain. Damon and Catherine discuss how he's going to help her and then she will owe him. And she's like, no, I'm under Klaus's compulsion. It's too late to give me vervain now. Damon's like, well, did he order you to obey everything he ever tells you until the end of time? And she's like, no. And he's like, there we go. Loophole. You can take vervain and then be free from anything else he instructs you to do going forward, even if you are still stuck in this house. When Damon comes in, he's only mildly surprised to see that Catherine is alive. Because remember, they hadn't seen her, a few days at this point. But he says that, nah, I kind of figured you were still alive because Alaric Klaus knew way too much about all of us, and I figured he was getting his intel from someone.
Fair.
Also, worth pointing out, in this scene, Catherine downs the vervain, and she coughs as she swallows it. So it does still burn her.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I think it's been months, considering she was captured at Masquerade, has been in that tomb for ages, then was in the Salvatore house, and then now she's been trapped here. I don't think she's had a lot of opportunity to, keep the tolerance up,
I guess, if it wanes over time. Her vervain tolerance really doesn't become relevant past this season.
Yeah.
It's just not brought up again. Damon's like, you owe me for the vervain. I'ma collect at some point. And then he and Andy leave. In another flashback, we see Elijah and Katerina. I'm like, why is this your go-to game? She's playing another game of catch. No, not catch. Catch is when you throw a ball. She's playing a game of tag.
Hide and seek.
Elijah is chasing her around this outdoor area. And she's like, Elijah, you're supposed to catch me. And Elijah's like, oh, but if I were to do that, then the game would be over.
Wow.
And it's this mirror for her running around with the Salvatore boys in their garden in 1864. She even thanks Elijah for entertaining her. And he's like, oh no, you seemed bored inside, so I took pity on you. Then Katerina says that Klaus promised to spend the day with her, but then just didn't come home that night. She says that Klaus is a very charming man, and it must be hard for any woman to resist him, but there are times when she doesn't really know why he's courting her, because it doesn't seem like he cares about her at all.
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm like, I would have loved to see this thing unfold. How exactly did Klaus become her suitor?
Yeah.
And then beyond that, how did he show, at least as far as she's concerned, I don't really care about this girl. I'm just keeping her around so I can sacrifice her at the end of the month.
Yeah. You spend 5 minutes with the guy. You go, there's nothing behind those eyes, even as you whisper sweet nothings. What is... I'm always baffled when people are so into it. I'm like, what is sexual about Klaus? Except for just him physically being attractive. Is that all it takes?
That's enough for some people.
Okay. I'm just there's no energy here. Even Damon, I can sort of see where people are coming from, even though I'm not personally into it. Klaus has always baffled me.
Oh, interestingly, when Catherine's being all oh, Klaus doesn't love me, why is he courting me? Elijah tells her that many a union has been built on much less, which is fitting for this era.
We are in the 15th century, my love.
He's not wrong. But Katerina asks if it's wrong to want more. And Elijah's like, do you have more with Trefor? They're back to calling him Trevor, actually, in this scene.
Well, I've given up trying to make it work. It's okay.
Katerina says, Trevor believes he loves me, but true love is not real unless it's returned.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh, how interesting that the woman who played Damon, who loved her, for a fool, and who insists she belongs with Stefan, who hates her, once said these words.
Yeah. I guess we got lost somewhere along the way, Miss Ma'am. Somewhere you forgot that.
But she asks Elijah, don't you agree? And Elijah looks sad for a moment and then says, I do not believe in love, Katerina. And she's like, no, that's too sad for me to accept, my lord. Life is too cruel. If we cease to believe in love, why would we want to live?
Goodness.
Given how she is betrayed by Elijah, mostly, and is preyed upon by Klaus, and then has to use Trevor's love for her to survive, I wonder if at some point Katerina stopped believing in the love around herself, and that was what pushed her to see death as her best option. Death being vampirism. She's like, you know what? Life sucks and then you die. I might as well be an immortal.
Truly, I might as well have actually like strong, cool powers like these people have. Because what's the point? There's no winning this game by being sweet and lovely and kind and nice. You do that and then they sacrifice you, right? The idea of being the like kind-hearted, sweet, virginal woman, that's what gets you sacrificed, is what she's been taught by these experiences. So might as well become the monster, because how else am I getting out of this?
Klaus does come back from his night of, I guess, hunting, because there's blood on his collar, and he leads Katerina away. She turns to give this like lasting look at Elijah before she goes, and he's like sitting there all longing, and I'm like, love triangles. This girl stays in love triangles.
Oh, bless. Shame. This one she fell into. The second one she built.
She said, so back in the 15th century, I found out I have a thing for brothers.
That's really where I sort of learned what my proclivities were, so I'm just trying to like lean into that.
She's like, I learned I need a bad one and a good one.
Yeah, balance things out.
Back in the present, Catherine is having a solo dance party at Rick's place. She's like playing music, drinking some liquor, because she's like, yay, I'm free, I'm on Vervain, I'm okay. Klaus comes in, still inside a lark. He's very sullen. He's been having his own day of obstacles. This is when Stefan has confronted him in front of Jenna, and Jenna's learned the truth, etc., etc. Catherine is like, why are you so grumpy? Klaus tells him that a lark's body has outlived its usefulness. So Catherine's like, well, have a drink with me. And he's like, I don't want to drink, Katerina. And she's like, come on, have a drink. It'll loosen you up. He takes the bottle out of her hands and smashes it against the wall on the other side of the room. Ugh. Then compels her and tells her to sit down and shut up. And I'm like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
I must say, the way Matt Davis plays Klaus, particularly in the scenes with Catherine, terrifying.
Yeah.
Utterly terrifying.
He's a large man. That's why.
Yeah.
Like, visually aids that. And Nina Dobrev is also like a small woman. So even though it's Catherine, it's like visually you're seeing the disparity, and it aids the fact that like this man is 500 years older than her and is far more powerful.
Catherine has to pretend to be compelled, so she sits down and keeps quiet. Maddox then returns with Greta and some other henchmen, and they bring in a bunch of Klaus's stuff. He's just moving into Rick's place, but one of the things is a big crate with his body in it. In our second last flashback, we see Elijah trying to convince Klaus to find a way to spare Katerina's life, in spite of the ritual. We'll later learn that he planned to use that resurrective elixir on her after she had died. Klaus is like, Elijah, why do you care enough about this human girl to want to save her? She's a means to an end, and she literally doesn't matter beyond this curse being broken. And then Elijah's like, well, is it fair that Katerina should die just for your personal gain?
God.
And Klaus goes, boy, have you come to care about this mortal human?
Who could imagine?
And Elijah's like, what? No. Klaus warns him that love is a vampire's greatest weakness. And as the flashback ends, we see Elijah is narrating these events to Elena. And Elena then realizes that Elijah did care about Catherine all those centuries ago. To which Elijah just says, it's a common mistake, I'm told. And he vows not to make it again.
Oh.
And from what we've seen this season, it really is. The actual final flashback is Klaus barging in 1492 to Elijah's room to tell him that Katerina has fled. And he accuses Elijah of having done something or said something to alert her to the danger. And Elijah's like, what? No, I would never. And Klaus is like, I don't believe you. Elijah gives his word that he will find Katerina. And Klaus says, boy, you better, because if you don't, I will kill you. The final scene of the episode shows Klaus returning to his true body as Catherine looks on. Episode 20. Catherine is trying to find some blood bags in the fridge. It's all empty. Rick shows up with Damon to invite him in because now he's got his body back. Katherine is like, you need to stop coming here. You're going to get me killed. When Klaus finds out you've been sneaking in and out. And Damon's like, hey, remember how I said I was going to come collect? I'm here to collect. I need to know where Klaus is keeping his werewolf for the sacrifice. Because if I kill the werewolf, he can't perform the ritual. And Katherine's like, don't interfere. Klaus will murder you and everyone you've ever met. Damon's like, I just need to delay the event. It's because of nonsense Damon's done. You can see the Damon episode for that. But Damon's like, hey, I'm helping you here. If the sacrifice doesn't happen, you don't die either as the vampire sacrifice. You gain like another month of life while Klaus tries to sort this stuff out again. Katherine's like, oh girl, I'm not the vampire sacrifice. What made you think that? I must say, it would have been fittingly evil and poetic for Klaus to be like, hey, you know how you thought you escaped me 500 years ago by becoming a vampire and rendering your doppelganger blood useless? Psych, I'm still gonna use you in the same ritual. You're just gonna play a different role now.
I just shifted the variable in the equation, so it still works out.
Katherine eventually reveals that no, Klaus is using Caroline and Tyler as his vampire and werewolf. Damon's like, wait a minute, did you give him that idea? And Katherine's like, hey, I'm just trying to stay alive long enough to get out of here. So then Damon's like, okay, cool, here's some incentive. I force-fed Elena my blood. So if she does die, she's gonna come back as a vampire and you can compete with her for Stefan's affections for eternity. Have fun.
God.
Later on, Klaus comes back and immediately notices that, wait a second, something's been going on here. Catherine's like, hey, is everything okay? She's making a pot of coffee. And he's like, what have you been doing? And she's like, I'm just making coffee. You want some? And he grabs her by the throat and compels her and is like, tell me what you've been doing. And of course, she's on vervain, so she just says, I've been making coffee. Klaus is like, no, I wasn't born yesterday. Take off your daylight bracelet and go stand in the sun. I want to test a theory. And Catherine's like, but I'll burn. And he's like, well, you don't have a choice because you're compelled, aren't you? Demonstration of absolute willpower. She goes and she stands there. She weathers the sunlight, burns for a few seconds until Klaus is like, okay, you can move away. I guess I was wrong. Anyway, on an unrelated note, I need you to do something for me, Katerina. That night, Damon comes in to brag to Klaus that he's killed his witch and freed Caroline and Tyler. So he's like, you know, without 2 of your 3 necessary sacrifices and a witch to do the ritual, you're gonna have to postpone it. And Klaus is like, Katherine, go to the other room for a second. And then tells Damon, I've got backups, so this was all for nothing. And then he knocks Damon out. At the end of the episode, Damon wakes up and Katherine is like, yeah, Klaus has gone to do his ritual. And Damon's like, I thought he was gonna use me as the vampire though. And Catherine's like, yeah, so in this earlier scene, Klaus asked me to do something for him. Turns out he asked me to trick Jenna into coming outside so he could turn her into a vampire and use her in the ritual. I had no choice because if I said no, he was gonna know I was on vervain. And then Damon's like, I gave you vervain so that you would have a choice. And then he's like, I just don't understand why Klaus wouldn't have just used me. And Catherine's like, well, you have a werewolf bite on your arm. I don't know if you've noticed. Next episode, the sun also rises. Catherine's like, okay, so you're just gonna die now from the werewolf bite? And Damon's like, yep, I guess so, unless you know about a cure. And Katherine seems sad, but Damon's not having it. Damon's like, girl, I don't care about you. I need to go fix this mess that I largely started. And Catherine's like, no, you can't leave. Like, it's 145 years and no last goodbye. And Damon's like, you don't get a last goodbye. And he tells her, I'm sorry, girl, but ending my life on good terms with you
is not a priority.
List. So once again, Catherine's like, look, I get you're mad that I sold Jenna out, but it was her or me. And I chose her. Did you forget who I am?
Right. I'm quite consistent.
Damon is just like, okay, it just seems highly convenient that at the end of tonight, we're gonna kill Klaus, Jenna will be dead, you'll be free of the compulsion, and somehow you walk away with all your ducks in a neat little row and everything you've ever wanted. How did that happen? And Catherine's like, well, it happened because I didn't let love get in the way. Damon just tells her to enjoy eternity alone. Before he leaves, he tells her that he's gonna try and offer himself up as a sacrifice, but Catherine's like, oh no, you can't do that because the werewolf bite makes your blood impure, so that's why Klaus is not gonna use you.
Soz.
That's the last of her. We see that episode. In the final episode of season 2, Stefan goes to Rick's apartment to find Klaus because some witch spirits told him that Klaus was the key to curing Damon's steadily worsening werewolf bite. He finds Katherine alone inside and it's hilarious. We forget how much time has passed. At the start of this episode, I think Elijah says Klaus has been in wolf form for 2 nights before turning back to human form.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been 2 days since the ritual happened and they buried Jenna and John. Katherine has been stuck in here not knowing knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Waiting for the compulsion to wear off. She's so annoyed. She's like, I've been stuck in here for 2 days. I'm supposed to be free of Klaus's compulsion. He's supposed to be dead. And then Stefan's like, yeah, we hit a snag with that plan. Cry me a river. I'm looking for Klaus. Do you know where he might be? Klaus arrives at that moment with Elijah. Catherine's like, oh, look who stopped by to visit, Klaus. Klaus is like, yeah, I'll deal with you in a moment. Daggers Elijah and then says, let's get down to business, Stefan. You wanted something?
Yeah.
Stefan's like, hey, I need the cure. Klaus is like, all right, cool. If you want it, it's my blood, by the way. I want you to unlock your Ripper self. To that end, he spends the day forcing Stefan to drink blood bag after blood bag, making him more and more feral with bloodlust. Katherine is just like helplessly watching in the background. She's largely a spectator for all this. Like at one point when Klaus is torturing Stefan with a stake, she's like, hey, he's just trying to help his brother. Like, go easy on him. The way she looks at Stefan as he slowly becomes a Ripper, it's like, it's not like she doesn't like this side of him. I think it's more that she's like, no one's allowed to force him to do stuff he doesn't want to do except me.
Because that's what I was thinking about, right? I was like, Stefan being traded from one like monster to another. Because truly in the next season, Klaus takes a spot that Katherine occupied for quite some time in Stefan's life. So that's like kind of crazy that this scene with all of them in one place, that's how it happens. But also, I don't know if Katherine would be into... Do we ever see Katherine and Ripper Stefan together? I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
Briefly. No, not even in season... And I mean, I guess we'll come to talk about it, but even in season 3, when Stefan's a Ripper, we don't have them interact.
The most we see is when he's having like PTSD symptoms in season 5.
Right, that's the only time. Because you were saying you don't think she doesn't like that side of him. I don't know if she does. I don't think she's ever seen it.
I mean, I don't think she's looking at him and thinking, oh my gosh, this monster Klaus is turning you into. I think she's looking at him more like, shame, this poor sick puppy that Klaus is kicking when it's down.
I would believe of Katherine that she doesn't want to see Stefan in turmoil, at least in this respect.
Yeah, but certainly not because she values human life or wants him to be moderate with the amount of blood he drinks or anything.
No, not in that. I think the concern for her would be that he's in distress in that state, not for like the carnage or whatever. It's about Stefan, who she's always, concerned about.
Oh, it's in this scene that Klaus demonstrates how the cure works by biting Katherine. She's like, oh, no. And I'm like, yeah, Katherine, imagine you die from a werewolf bite after all this time. Ugh. But he quickly heals her with his blood. Elsewhere, we get a hallucinogenic flashback from Damon's werewolf fever, where we see him with Katherine in 1864. Grain of salt for how true any of this is. But he's playfully chasing Katherine. When he catches her by vamp rushing at her, something he couldn't do back then, Katherine is impressed that he can run that fast, and Damon is like, why must you always run from me? And Katherine says, because I know you will chase. And Damon says, let me chase you forever, and begs her to feed him her blood so that he can turn. Katherine says, I will not feed you, Damon. If you want it, take it. It's your choice to make. It is at the end of this episode that Damon acknowledges that, it's really my fault for being the person who chose to go down this road with Katherine, unlike Stefan, who was very much forced.
That's interesting, because I was curious as to, like, do we ever get any sense of that? Because he spends a lot of time blaming Stefan and hanging it on Stefan that things turn out the way he did, and it's like, do you have any sense of the fact that Stefan had no choice in this situation? I need to know.
Impending death is an eye-opener.
Well, good for him.
But eventually, Klaus is satisfied and says, Stefan, you got yourself a deal. Katerina, please come here and take this little bottle of my blood to Damon Salvatore and then come right back. And Katherine is like, wait, you want me to leave? And Stefan is like, no! And Klaus is like, yes. She vamp speeds out of there without even hearing the rest of what Klaus has to say. He's like, if I were you, I would hurry. And she's already gone. Stefan's like, no, she'll never take the blood to Damon.
She wouldn't. She could never. She doesn't care about him.
To everyone's surprise, she actually comes through.
Wild.
As Damon is dying in Elena's arms, and Elena gives him that iconic pitying goodbye kiss, Katherine walks into the room. Damon has just thanked Elena for her forgiveness, and Catherine's like, well, it's me you should be thanking. I mean, I'm the one who brought the cure.
She will never change.
This is also the first time Katherine has seen Elena since the sacrifice, and she's like, oh, I thought you were dead.
She's high on life now. She's got no freedom. She's free of Klaus. She's just like, on my way out. A few zingers of those who need them.
Damon is like, Catherine, you managed to get free. And Catherine's like, yep. And I came here because after all, I did owe you one. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Rare moment for you, Catherine. So she feeds him Klaus's blood and saves him. And then Elena's like, wait, where's Stefan? And then Catherine's like, are you sure
Like
you
you
care?
care?
And I'm like, all right. I'm just like, Catherine, get down that high horse of yours, please. Just relax. It was one kiss. Okay, you wanted Stefan to be in a throuple with his brother. Just calm down.
Well, I mean, she's like, well, not so different from me, huh?
She's got this air of like, aha, I caught you cheating, Elena. Been waiting all season for this.
I knew you'd slip up. Now, my chance.
Catherine's like, well, Stefan gave himself over to Klaus as payment for Klaus's blood, so I wouldn't expect him anytime soon. And Elena's like, what do you mean he gave himself over? Catherine says, well, Stefan sacrificed everything to save his brother, including you.
Okay. All right.
She's really getting every zinger out that she can.
You need to calm down.
And she bids them goodbye before walking out on her final lines for this season. Oh, it's okay to love them both. I did. And then she vamp speeds away.
Yeah, which, I mean, a feather in Damon's cap he'll never see is that, like, okay, well, she didn't not care about him at all. It may not have been in the monumental way that she loved Stefan, but she clearly cared for and loved him, as she says.
Because, I mean, Catherine could have kept that blood for herself and been like, listen, if I'm ever bitten...
And run. This is in case I ever get bitten, this is my contingency. But no, she brought it back for him. And as you said, when it seemed he was about to die, she was sad. What a complex creature, that Catherine. I think that's why I'm like in these moments of like engaging with Klaus and Elijah being like, I mean, I can have some empathy for that because this is the complexity you want in a character like Catherine. It's the complexity that I don't think they achieve well with Damon for whatever reason, and some people may argue with that. I see it more with Catherine, the sense, I said it earlier, monsters make monsters. The sense of like tragedy of her origin and also the chaos and destruction she leaves in her wake when she does what she does, right?
Yeah.
As we said, her motto of, I do whatever it takes to survive. You pull that string back because of how she was shaped at that beginning of her story. But at the same time, as you move through her story, my God, Catherine, are you throwing so many people into the fire, under the bus? It's wild. And I think as a villain, that's what you want out of a villain, out of an antagonistic character. You want to be able to kind of go, wow, this is a lot more complex than I thought.
I think with Catherine, the reason that they get there is because the story is willing to acknowledge that she is a monster and they never ask you to root for her.
Yeah.
They're like, she's fun, she's interesting, but ultimately the good guys are working against her 9 times out of 10. So you don't have to be sitting there thinking, Catherine is a good person, she's just misunderstood.
I think the story expects... whatever. I'm not going to talk about Damon more in this. This is such a waste of time. Whatever. This is not his episode.
Catherine's episode.
Yeah.
she bleeds into his character quite a lot, as we've said.
Yeah. It's hard to extricate, especially since he's such a like offshoot of her, a reflection of her in a way that's like interesting.
So, season 3 of the Vampire Diaries. The peak of the show. It is. It really... This is... Oh, what is that thing called? You would know it. Physics. When you throw something up.
Oh, the maximum height in kinematics.
Yes, the maximum height.
Yes. At the maximum height, velocity is equal to 0.
And then it begins to accelerate towards the ground.
So real, so true.
That is season 3 of this beautiful show. And I must say, we don't see Catherine for the first 2 episodes. And I wasn't surprised.
Why would she come back?
Yeah, because at the very beginning of episode 3, the end of the affair, we start off with Damon getting a phone call from an unknown number. And he answers it and is like mildly surprised to hear Catherine on the end. And I was like, I'm surprised. I thought you would be long gone.
Why would you ever stick around for any of this nonsense? You're free as hell now.
Yeah, Klaus is fully invested in still like getting his quote unquote revenge on her, but he's busy with other things at the moment. So take the win, girl. Go to Australia.
have some fun down under.
Because I was like, I love seeing Katherine. It's not that I wanted her to go. I
Yeah.
just didn't expect her to be relevant to where we were going. Because season 3, we ended with Jeremy's being haunted. Damon and Elena are stuck together because Stefan has been taken away. And it's like, yeah, I didn't feel like Katherine needed to
Where
be
does
here
Katherine
anymore.
fit in for this? But always fun to have a little reference. It's like, hey, whenever she shows up, whatever's going on, it's going to be a good time at least. It's going to be fun.
Damon's immediately like, where are you? And she's like, I'm lurking right outside your window, pining away.
You see what I'm saying?
Katerina, you are so unserious. Anyway, she isn't outside his window. We can see that she's at a public payphone, which I don't think Mystic Falls has any of.
No, that town is old as hell. They didn't install any.
Dave was like, what do you want? She's like, I am homesick for Mystic Falls. What have I missed since I've been gone? And I'm like, Katherine, why do you care? Go!
You don't even like these people.
The only reason you ever lived here was to come up with a plan to like fake your own death and
Right.
murder all your friends. Damon says to catch you up, Katherine. Stefan's still Klaus's little prisoner. Elena still thinks she can save him. And no one's thought about you since you left. And I was like, damn. But she gets her own licks in. She's like, and what have you been up to, Damon? I assume you must be like moving in on your brother's girlfriend by now since you've completely given up on saving him.
Right.
And I was like, whoop, well.
'Cause
she's kind of not entirely wrong.
No, she isn't.
But Damon insists that he actually hasn't given up on Stefan. He just doesn't know where he is. And then Catherine's like, And then Damon says, have you been trailing Stefan and Klaus?
She's like, what else do you think I'm doing with my time? I'm looking for my boy.
She's like, a hybrid who wants me dead and his sidekick who's off the rails. I couldn't be farther away. Which Damon clocks and he's like, okay, if you couldn't be farther away, that means you know exactly where they are.
Exactly.
I swear he's getting smarter. Little by little, it's happening.
Slowly the neurons are firing. The trails are being built. Good for him. I said it. Season 3 is his best season.
So eventually, Katherine says that, yeah, Klaus is out looking for answers to why he can't successfully sire new hybrids. Damon's like, how do you know that? And Katherine says that apparently, this is what she claims, after spending 500 years on the run from him, she has had a few people along the way looking out for her. And I'm like, Katherine, that's not untrue, but you phrase it like these people were friends. And you know that's not true.
It's all debts incurred.
You had two friends. One of them you betrayed, the other one was compelled to betray you, and that was it. But yeah, Damon asks if Katherine is looking out for Stefan, which of course she is. But Katherine's like, maybe, maybe not. I'm conflicted. Their conversation ends there, but it's through her that Damon learns that Stefan is in Chicago.
Yeah?
At the end of this episode, after failing to get Stefan back yet again, Damon receives another call from Katherine, and he's like, yeah, you were right, Stefan was in Chicago. Katherine says, yeah, I'm always right. And I think Damon starts to catch on to, how is she? She knows a bit too much. Like, and he's like, where are you, Katherine? And she just says, why? Do you want to come rub sunscreen on my back?
Oh my God.
Which I think throws Damon off the scent, because then he's like, oh, you're probably in like Europe, right? Like Italy or Spain. He's like, guess again. And that's when we get the scene of her hanging up and walking out, and the bus and the taxi cab she gets into, which show that she's in Chicago. And it's like, wait, Katherine, what?
Yeah, going right to the town where the man who chased her for 500 years, she knows he's there. But you know who else is there? Stefano Salvatore.
It's just because we also get the flashback, Katherine with her badass
With
bob
her bad
in the
bob.
20.
Did you say badass? Because I'm saying bad.
I said badass bob.
Oh, no. That bob does not suit her face. I don't know what was going on.
It was one scene, you know what? And she never went back to it. She learned. She was like, okay, it doesn't
And
work
I
for me.
respect her for it.
I rock the long wavy locks. But it's after Klaus and Rebecca have fled and they've removed Stefan's memories of all his time with them, and then Michael comes in pretending to be an American cop.
An American cop.
Katherine is watching as Stefan picks up the necklace that Rebecca dropped, and I'm like, oh, so did she know this whole time that was Rebecca's necklace? Wild that she never brought that up when she was trying to make digs at Stelena. But
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, it shows us that not only was Katherine insane enough to keep tabs on Stefan and stalk him when he was right next to Klaus in the 20s, but she's doing it again! And I'm like, Katherine, the first time you'd been on the run for like 400 years, maybe you got cocky. Now, you just escaped Klaus like a month ago.
Tempting fate at this point, asking for trouble. Because that's how deep it goes for her. That's how real it is in her mind.
Because usually the thing is, as much as she wants Stefan, she will betray him, hurt him, upset him if it means saving herself. Generally, her self-preservation still trumps whatever feeling she has for him. But man, if he isn't the closest thing that she gets to coming to a place of like, I'm gonna make a stupid decision because I'm obsessed with this man.
There's also, I mean, at this point, right, because she is still technically on the run. Klaus isn't actively chasing her.
Yeah.
Klaus doesn't have like agents in the world looking for her as he assumedly did before getting what he wanted. His whole thing was, I want to do the sacrifice thing, break the curse, not the sun and moon curse, which we may have forgotten to mention, wasn't real. Y'all know this. I want to break the curse on me that's keeping me from being a full hybrid. Now that he's gotten everything he's wanted and his new mission is making more of himself, it's like, Katherine, I'll find some other time, some other day to deal with that. Like, that's not my priority. So it's like, what else is Katherine doing? What does she have to, like, consume her time? She spent 500 years on the run, so she's never been able to consider, like, okay, in a scenario where I get to live life, at least in part, what do I want? Like, what makes my life full? And now, when you sort of stop running and look around, it's like, there's not a lot going on, but you know what I do have going on.
I like to think her therapist told her to sit down and make a list of her goals and her wants and desires. And she sat down, and the only thing she could write was Stefan Salvatore. Number 1, Stefan Salvatore. That's it. That's the list.
That's kind of the whole list. Because what else does she have happening? She, like you said, she doesn't have friends. The life she's lived isn't conducive to making friends. Every time she's trying to like go back to Damon, right? Damon's the mistake ex that you go back to when you're feeling like lonely. And that one you keep on the back burner when you want to feel good about yourself and you call them up because you know they like you. Damon doesn't work anymore. He doesn't provide the fix. He doesn't keep the high going. So she's like, God, I've really got nothing else around me but Stefan and my love for him. So she's all focused in on that.
And maybe in some twisted aspect, she's like, oh, shame, my sweet little boy, who will definitely love me someday. I have to work at it.
We've just got to
has
wait.
been captured and enslaved by Klaus. I have to rescue him.
Yeah. In her own way, she's looking out for him, which, you know.
In the next episode, episode 4, Disturbing Behavior, Klaus has taken the newly undaggered Rebecca out dress shopping with Stefan in tow. Stefan grows bored of their energy and steps out for some fresh air. And once he's outside, he spots Katherine waiting for him across the street. Now I want to point out that the shop that Klaus and Rebecca were in has big glass windows.
Yeah.
That... I'm like, Katherine, you were across the street? What if Klaus had turned around?
She is dancing on that knife's edge. It's crazy.
She gestures for Stefan to follow her. And he's like, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, oh, well, you and Klaus seem really chummy. Is he your new bestie? And I'm like, there's a world in which Katherine would be jealous of what Stefan has with Klaus.
Right?
Knowledge that these two were boyfriends.
Right?
But...
like I was saying, he's occupying a space that previously was hers to stand in. It's kind of like, whoa, interesting.
She sees Stefan with another abusive ex and she's like, no, he's all wrong for you. Like, why would you ever? He sucks.
You see, Stefan? He sucks. He doesn't love you like I do. It's like, girl, come on now. I hold up a mirror to her face.
Stefan warns her that if Klaus finds out that she's in Chicago, she is dead. And she's like, aw, Stefan, happy to know you still care. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's how you want to interpret that, Katherine.
Right.
So then she's just like, yeah, confirm something for me. The long lost necklace that I know Rebecca is currently looking for, which again, I'm like, she's been spying on them to have heard these conversations. She must have been close by. But she's like, that long lost necklace, that's the same one you gave Elena in season 1, isn't it? And Stefan's like, okay, bye. And then she's like, wait, I want to know what you're up to. Like,
Tell
I'm
me what you've
bored.
been
Nothing's
up-
happening for me this season.
We haven't seen each other in so long, you know? Like, catch me up. What's your life been? It's like old exes who haven't seen each other in years. It's like, girl, that is not what's happening.
So Stefan is like, look, Rebecca and Klaus don't know where the necklace is, and I just need to keep it that way. And Katherine says, wait, hold up. Please tell me that's not your whole plan. Like, that's it? Stefan, come now.
You gotta pick it up. You gotta add like at least a second layer to this. What are we doing?
But Stefan's silence confirms that it's not his whole plan. She's like, oh, so you are plotting something. Tell me what it is. I want to know. He doesn't tell her, and she's like, listen, Stefan, you are not the diabolical type. So whatever it is you're cooking up, it's not gonna work. Stefan says, well, Katherine, if the most diabolical woman I know can't figure it out, I must be doing something right. And I'm like, ooh. He's got you there, Katherine. And then Katherine's like, oh yeah, I forgot, you're bad now. Which is such a funny. I'm like, is this the first time Katherine looks into the camera like she does in season 5?
Right. Just to be like,
She's like, oh yeah, Stefan's in his villain area. He's a
hey
ripper,
guys, this shit again, am I right?
But she tells him not to get too cocky because she's like, look, Klaus is smarter than you. He's smarter than everyone. And as Stefan walks away, she tells him to be wary of Rebecca because she will ruin him, apparently. And I'm like,
again,
a little bit. This is definitely jealousy.
Jealousy makes you nasty.
She'd love to go to Rebecca and be like, well, I knew him first. And when he was human, I met him in 1864. So, just
to let you know.
Got there a bit earlier than you.
What the totem pole hierarchy is.
Imagine if Katherine had met Valerie. Anyway.
Ooh, I would love to see that fight. Ooh, because Valerie's got a nasty streak in her too. Listen, that girl don't play. Whew.
Later on in that episode, Gloria the witch,
love,
with her platinum blonde dew, is performing her torturous spell on Stefan to find out what he's hiding. She's able to see through visions that she gets that Elena is still alive. And she's like, oh, so that's the reason Klaus can't sire hybrids. Okay, oh, you're gonna love this. Then suddenly Katherine appears and she's like, this is creepy, and stabs Gloria in the neck, killing her. And I'm like, wow, all right. Katherine is happy to tell Stefan that, oh, maybe you do need me after all. A little while later, they're like disposing of Gloria's body. And Katherine's like, okay, Stefan, just a little tip. Klaus is too paranoid to ever fully trust you. But Rebecca, now she's the easier mark because she's clearly still in love with you. But she warns Stefan that it won't be enough to just fake the feelings. So he needs to play them both by, she says, you need to spend time and bond with Klaus so that Rebecca gets jealous, which will make her want you more.
Yeah.
And then Stefan's like, oh, so am I to take a page out of the Katherine Pierce playbook?
Exactly! Because you're going after the siblings and you've got to convince them both that you're into them. Girl! Katherine codifies the Stefan Klaus connection in an implicitly romantic way.
She would know. She's like, listen, Stefan, I love a good sibling three-way.
You know?
So here are my notes. You can borrow them. I want them back when you're done.
I put a lot of work into them. Do you see those gel pen cornices? That was all me, baby.
Katherine says that she still doesn't understand exactly what Stefan is up to. She's like, I know you want to keep Klaus away from Mystic Falls, but what else are you getting out of this? And then Stefan's like, lol. It's funny that you keep talking to me like I actually trust you enough to tell you anything.
It's good to, she's like, it's good to want things, Katherine.
Yeah.
It's my favorite line of Stefan.
She's like, no, we're past this. I just saved you from Gloria. And that's when Stefan is like, okay, cool, fine. I will tell you this much. Rebecca and Klaus were running from someone in the 1920s. Someone who scared them. And then Kevin's like, oh, yeah. I did hear about like a vampire hunter who was after them. And Stefan's like, so explain to me why an original vampire who can't be killed is afraid of a vampire hunter. That's when Katherine says, okay, if you're planning on making a move against Klaus, much like season 2, I want in. And Stefan's like, that's good, Katherine.
It's good to want things. It's because it's the first season Stefan gets to be catty, and I really appreciated that line. I thought it was so good.
And he tells her that he is in this alone. He's doing his
it's his Stefan alone era. Yeah.
Yes. He says, if you're looking for a diabolical partner in crime, you should look elsewhere. And it's like, oh, Stefan, well, now you've set her on a path. I know that after this, she gets with Damon, but before that happens...
She snatches the talisman from Bonnie.
Yes, she goes...
She pretends to be...
She straightens her hair, comes back to Mystic Falls.
She said my old haunts.
She's like, hey, Bonnie, Jeremy told me that you still have my necklace. And Bonnie's like, oh, yeah, this thing. She's like, yeah, could I have it back real quick? Bonnie's spilling the tea on all the stuff that's been going on the Mystic Falls side of the plot lately.
Yeah.
And then she turns around and Elena's gone and it's like, oh, that was Katherine.
Yeah. God, that's on me.
Away.
I got comfortable after 4 months of not having to deal with that woman, and I thought she would never return.
Stefan's words make her realize that, fine, I'll go find the original bad boy. I'll work with him because Stefan doesn't want to play ball. We're going to go find this vampire hunter who was apparently entombed years ago. Because I know a thing or two about tombs.
It's my bag, baby. She gets Damon at the end of that episode, and we begin with the road trip with them in the following episode where they're on the way.
This is when she tells Damon that, okay, my friend Pearl, you know, the one who gouged your eyes out, she once told me that she had heard of a hunter with a weapon that could kill an original. Not just dagger dead, like dead. And then Damon's like, okay, did she tell you what it was or where it was or who had it? And she's like, well, no, it was leverage. Why would she have told me that, Damon? Like, don't be stupid.
Don't you understand?
And Damon's like, okay, great. Well, she's dead, so that doesn't help us. And then she says, yes, the only person she did tell was her daughter, Anna. And Damon's like, who is also dead? She's like, yeah, I've kidnapped Jeremy, a medium who can see Anna. We can get him to ask her what she might know about this thing.
Because she just got that information from Bonnie while impersonating Elena. So...
Yep. Always spilling all their secrets because they think they're talking to her.
So useful and powerful, her skill. God damn it.
So, yeah, we've discussed it in the Damon and Jeremy episodes, I believe. Once they torture Jeremy enough and threaten him enough, well, it's not really torture. They just, like, give him a concussion. And it's like, okay,
they hit his head against the table. He's a human 16-year-old. I think that's a lot. I think Katherine says, if you want to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. And then Damon cracks his head against the park bench. I think that's violent enough.
And of course, Damon's like, I'll do it.
Right. And we spoke about this in the Damon episode of like, for someone who's so free of Katherine's influence and doesn't care about Katherine anymore, you sure do fold so quickly when she suggests an idea to you, Damon.
Yeah.
You sure do lean into the thing you're supposedly supposed to be leaving behind without a thought.
She brings out the worst in him this episode. Like
you're a grown
he's working towards a
170
good goal,
something man.
But
figure it out, buddy. You heard that and went, well, it's the most logical thing to beat this kid up to make the ghost talk. I'm not going to put that on Katherine.
They're like, we can't threaten her. She's already dead.
Right.
She's in love with him.
I won't pretend as though that's not something Damon would have done before. My only thing is that, like, the fact that she said it and you were like, well, I guess I'll do it.
Yep. But Anna talks. She's like, okay, fine. You're looking for Michael. He's a vampire who hunts other vampires. I don't think she tells them that he's an original.
No, I don't think
she
so.
Might not know that. She's like, yeah, he's incredibly dangerous. Do not wake him up. He will kill you all. Damon and Katherine are like, cool, let's go wake him up because we really want to kill Klaus and we'll deal with whatever comes later afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, this is also the episode, I think it happens earlier, when they first go on the road trip. Katherine, like, tries to make out with Damon. She straddles him, tries to get things hot and heavy.
Right.
He pushes her off again, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I figured it was worth a shot, but the truth is, you just don't do it for me anymore, Katherine.
Yeah. And then later in that episode, well...
At the end of that episode, I think that's when she goes with Jeremy to Charlotte, and that's when they open the tomb and they find Michael there. In the next episode, I believe Jeremy is suddenly gone, so I guess he didn't stick around?
She does go with Jeremy because Damon gets the call then from Elena. Well, he doesn't get the call. She's been hiding his phone. But he sees the message that, like, stuff's happening in Mystic Falls and Elena's in danger, and he's like, God damn it, and then he runs back.
I forgot she was hiding his phone.
She hid his phone
that
whole time.
From Katherine's POV, with good reason, because the second he knows Elena's in trouble, he leaves. And she's like, ugh, we were in the middle of a good plan here. Who cares if Elena dies? This is like killing Klaus.
That's why I always have to take care of shit myself. God damn it. Then she goes to the crypt in Charlotte and wakes up Michael.
She's like killing rats and local people around, trying to feed them to him, to like de-desiccate him. She calls Damon and tells him that she has found Michael, but that he refuses to eat. And she's like, I've tried everything. Mice, rats, bats, mourners, gravediggers. He won't eat anything. I'm like, mourners and gravediggers? How many innocent people did she kill today?
In the same echelon as mice and rats. So crazy.
Eventually, she does see another person walking by, probably another mourner, and she's like, okay, I'll try one last time. Murders this innocent person, drips their blood directly onto Michael's lips.
Right.
So he does wake up a bit, and he's like, ugh, get it away.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, fine.
Damn.
She breaks off his chains, and she starts asking him, she's like, so apparently you're the big bad hunter who's gonna kill Klaus. Frankly, I'm not that impressed, because you don't look like that much. And Michael is like, no, it is me. I am he. I will kill Klaus. Just point me in the direction and I'll go. He's still a bit worn down. He hasn't recovered from his desiccation. Catherine jokes that, some blood would grease those joints right up. Michael tells her, I don't feed off the living. And she's like, oh, then what do you eat? Grabs her, sinks his teeth into her, and drains her blood.
Woof.
And
Wild.
It feels foolish to me now, but the first time I watched this, I was like,
she's dead.
I don't know what exsanguination does to vampires in this world. Is she dead? Did Catherine die? And the thing is, we don't see her again for 3 episodes.
You don't see her for a bunch of episodes. It's like,
dead.
God damn, what happened to her? Leave exsanguination. Certainly a lot of vampires, you could tear their head off, do something that would actually kill them.
Yeah.
It could have led there. You certainly are supposed to wonder for those 3 episodes, well, damn. Was that the end of Catherine? Crazy.
I was like, this is so unceremonious. She died on a side quest.
And part of it is the horror, right, of learning about this vampire who feeds off of other vampires.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Season 3, episode 9. We still haven't seen her since Michael fed off her.
Right.
And I think maybe you're right. Maybe we were meant to believe that she had just met her demise, because it's a twist at the end of the episode when we see that the person who has been invited to this party that is happening at the Lockwood house that Klaus has forced Tyler to throw while the Salvatores try to work with Michael to kill him. It's very convoluted. Listen to the Elena and Damon episodes for more deets on that.
Right.
We see who we think is Elena there. She actually arrives with Matt, and it's like, If you had the time.
We've been pulling this thread. She was happy to be there.
But eventually, when they make their move against Klaus, Michael seems to betray the group by endangering Elena and threatening to kill her, which is not something that Team Salvatore, we believe, would have agreed to do. He's like, come out and face me, boy, or I'll kill your precious doppelganger and you won't be able to make any more of your wretched hybrids. And Klaus is like, I have a better idea. Why don't you come in here and then I can kill you? Eventually, Michael's like, okay, you think I was bluffing? I don't care about this girl. Stabs her in the back, seemingly killing Elena. They get into a scuffle, but in the midst of that, Catherine rises to her feet, revealing that, psych, I'm not Elena. I'm a vampire who can't be killed by knife wounds. Pulls out vervain grenades that have been mixed with wolf's bane, throws them at the hybrids outside. She's like, ba-boom.
She's suddenly a femme fatale from the 90s. It's so crazy. Rises up in heels.
She's suddenly from a superhero comic.
Right.
Other than this, before the final scene, she has brief interactions with Klaus pretending to be Elena, where he thinks she's Elena. It's funny because he's judging her energy based on what he imagines Elena would be feeling. So he's like, oh, you seem nervous. And she's like, well, no, I'm not nervous. I just don't like you. And I'm just like, I wonder how fast her heart was racing.
Imagine. She's like, I'm right in
there.
front of this man and I have to just keep it cool the whole time. Ooh.
But ultimately, she was down for the plan, because we learn at the end of the episode, after Stefan botches Damon's attempt to kill Klaus, and Klaus ends up killing Michael instead, that, oh no, there were contingencies in place that would have resulted in Damon being killed if they had managed to kill Klaus. I mean, later on, we know that this is all a moot point. They would have all been dead if they'd staked Klaus because of a sideline.
Right, but they didn't know all that.
We didn't know that. They didn't know that. But it's just like, oh, once again, Damon's life was on the line.
Yeah.
And Catherine agreed to put herself at risk in order to do something to save him. And it's like,
exactly.
All right.
It's like, damn, girl.
Interesting. And she calls Damon and tells him that, hey, you know what? You had a good plan.
Like, for you, this was a good plan. I have to say, I'm impressed by the level that you've shown. Unfortunately, it still wasn't a real plan. Sorry to tell you.
And Damon's like, are you going to go back into hiding now? And she's like, well, at least my life's not boring. Bye, Damon. But we do see her having a final meeting with Stefan, who's like, yeah, we're never going to tell Damon that this was all to save him. But, girl, I have to ask, why did you care enough to help us, especially to save Damon. Catherine is just like, hey, listen, it's like Rose told Damon in season 2. As you age, that humanity switch just gets duller and duller. Vampires' emotions do creep back every now and then. And she's like, sometimes I let them. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you know what? If it's not going to lead to my direct death,
I might as well. This is interesting.
Might as well.
Because earlier I was saying I don't think Catherine and No Humanity Stefan have had a scene, but this is the scene. Because it's so you forget that Stefan doesn't have his humanity on for most of this season because Stefan doesn't act like most vampires who have their humanity off. I mean, it's what Catherine's saying, right? It's that like even without your humanity on, this thing is kind of a farce. This switch that we talk about, like you can never fully escape yourself by doing this, at least at this stage. That's what we are saying. And I think what she's saying too is also a reveal to the fact that she wants Stefan to get back to himself, I think.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Now that you mention it, because you did say before, I don't think she likes.
I don't think she would
Although
like
Ripper
him
Stefan and emotionless Stefan are different things.
Right.
But, yeah, because Stefan is like, oh, how did you know that I would stop Damon? She's like, well, I didn't. I was just hoping that you would want to.
Right.
Which I guess was her way of being like, I want you to be the kind of person who loves your brother enough to save him.
Right, because that's the person I like. Despite all the bullshit, despite all the nonsense I've been spitting, like this is the thing that has been most true. And I think you said in the last session of like, Stefan's the one who saw through all the like vampirism and all the monstrosity and all the like pageantry she puts on and saw the girl who had to sacrifice everything. So I don't think that she would prefer Stefan as this person without his humanity, without a care for anything. She likes the Stefan who cares. She likes the Stefan who cares too much, frankly.
And at the very least, she likes that he cares enough to do things that maybe she doesn't have it in her to do.
Right.
Because when she speaks to Stefan privately about how, oh, well, Klaus has some contingencies in place, Stefan is like, okay, fine. So then tell Michael or just, stop the plan. And Catherine's like, well, no, I can't do that because Michael will kill us all. He doesn't care about Damon living or dying. And then Stefan is like, okay, well, then, like, what are we supposed to do? And Catherine is like, well, you don't have your humanity on, so I know you don't care about Damon right now, but I have a solution. Stefan's like, what's that? And she's like, care. You need to care enough to save Damon because, boy, I'm telling you right now, if it's up to me, I'm going into that party and I'm going to go through with the plan we had unless you tell me that you want to save your brother as well.
Right.
If you don't care, I'm not about to give up my only chance of killing Klaus.
To save his life. It's gotta be. And if that, there's so much in that too, because it's like, it's both. I am trying to push you to find yourself again, the part of you that cares about your brother, the part of you that feels. And also, I am showing you that if you tell me to, I will put my life on the line, right? In its own messed up ways, just like how much she cares about Stefan.
Yeah.
Catherine!
And it's a shame because it's one of the moments where she's showing that she does value Damon's life, but ultimately it is colored with like, she did it for Stefan as well.
No, truly.
When Stefan asks her, okay, so you sacrificed your chance to kill this man you've wanted dead for 500 years to save Damon? And she's like, well, it wasn't just about Damon. I was trying to save you and your humanity by forcing you to care about Damon because I like the old you better.
15% to save Damon and like 85% to get my boy back. That's just kind of how it is.
You know what? He has his moment at the end of season 2 with the cure for werewolf bite. I guess that has to be enough.
It's crazy to ask for more, frankly.
After all this, because Stefan, he's still sulky, he's still mostly no humanity Stefan, so especially in this state, he's like, I'm not about to believe, Catherine, that you truly care enough about my mental health to give up your chance to kill Klaus. And she's like, no, that's not true. And this is the scene where she does admit, even though we are acknowledging that a lot of this was motivated by her care for Stefan, she does admit in this scene that I did love Damon as well. So this is the second time she's used the word love to describe how she felt about Damon, even though she told him that she never loved him. She's like, I loved you, Stefan. I loved Damon too.
Like I said, polyamory sometimes has hierarchy. You just gotta roll with it. It's fine.
He was her primary
exactly.
But before she departs, because she says, look, I'm leaving the show for a bit. I need to put 1,000,000 miles between me and Klaus.
Now that I've directly crossed him.
Edge for too long. She's the one who tells Stefan and sets him on this path that he continues as we slowly see no humanity Stefan corrode. You need to be able to feel, because if you don't feel, you won't be able to do what I need you to do next. And Stefan is like, what's that? And then she says, get mad.
Yeah. Sets him on the revenge path.
And that's how he becomes hyper-focused on, okay, I'm gonna get Klaus.
And that's always gonna be the linchpin, right? Because Stefan says this to Elena in season 4, and funny, we'll get to that, in terms of like, you need to find something to direct all your energy into when you come back from a period of not having your humanity switch on. In this case, she directs him towards this anger, partly for her own purposes, right? Because it's like she is incentivized to find a way to get rid of Klaus. I'm sure in her way she thinks it'll give Stefan some sort of closure. But in season 4, Stefan tries to convince Elena away from this because he knows that's not a healthy solve. So it's just like always gonna be at odds with the type of person you're pursuing and the type of person that you are. Just do not mesh.
Yeah, but that's Katherine for the good seasons of this show.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately,
we don't
she
see
does...
her for a long while after this.
Yeah, and when she returns, she does not escape the downward pull of the back half of this show.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it now, exploring these first 3 seasons, the little that we see of her in season 1, and the huge amount of presence she has in season 2,
yes,
and the bit of her we see in season 3. I honestly think she became more evil when she returned.
Yes, somehow.
Like, she does awful things, and it's just like suddenly whatever humanity she seemed to have left is gone.
Is eroded.
She will hurt all these people.
Because this moment we're leaving off of is probably the best moment Katherine has been in during her presence on the show. Putting herself in danger to save Stefan and Damon, these boys who she's done so much to, right? And Elena too, by extension, who we all know what the relationship is there. And when she comes back, oh God.
Does
it get bad?
I don't know where she went.
Much like Damon, again, he's in her image. Season 5 hits and suddenly they're like cartoonishly bad people. It's rough. But you know what? It's still fun, so we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah. But that's it for now. If you have any questions or thoughts, you can mail us at animalattackpod@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at animattackpod. That's at ANIM Attack Pod. You'll find our link tree in the bio, which has all of our online stuff. Until then, we'll be doossing out like Katherine, or maybe we'll slip back in when you least expect it, impersonating one of your loved ones.
You'll
no,
never
I'm kidding.
know.
That was scary. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Cheers.